Chapter 25. Do you think that the Xinwu Academy is inferior to the marshal's residence? Elder Beiteng glared at Wang Ping as an invisible force swept out. Bang! Rustle, rustle, rustle. Wang Kai's complexion suddenly changed. He wanted to resist, but found that he couldn't touch it at all. His body was directly shaken to the point where his feet slid across the ground. The powerful pressure continued to wreak havoc. Wang Kai only felt the blood and qi in his body tumbling. He clenched his teeth and the veins on his forehead bulged. He forcibly stopped his body from retreating, but his face turned pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The strength of the martial ancestor realm was incomparable to that of the martial general realm. Young master! Wang Yuan and Wang Lai cried out in alarm and rushed forward to support Wang Kai, who was on the verge of collapsing. They quickly gathered battle qi and infused it into his body to check. When they found that their young master was severely injured, the two of them roared and drew their swords to attack Elder Beiteng. Cough, cough. Come back. Don't you see that I can't even stand properly? Wang Kai's face was pale as he clenched his teeth and shouted. Young master! Wang Yuan and Wang Lai's eyes were filled with ferocity as they glanced at Elder Beiteng with a pale face. They gripped their swords so tightly that their knuckles cracked. They looked hesitant and conflicted, but in the end, they could only let out a long and angry roar. They lowered their heads and silently retreated, carefully supporting Wang Kai. Host, I have detected that your injuries are very serious. If they are not healed in time, you will not be able to use martial arts for the next 3 days. Wang Kai's eyes hardened when he heard this. He was well aware of his injuries. He did not even have the strength to stand, not to mention not being able to use martial arts for the next 3 days. That old bastard, Elder Beiteng, had hit him so hard. Can I be healed? Wang Kai urged in his mind. Host, you need to spend 1 bragging point to recover to your peak state. It's a good thing that I can be healed. Wang Kai laughed coldly. Whoosh! Wanja's figure suddenly flashed and appeared in front of Wang Kai. He bowed to Elder Beiteng, cupped his fists, and said respectfully, Master Beiteng, I still have a duel with him. I hope Master can let him go this time. After I defeat him, I will make him kowtow and apologize to Master. Well, since Zhe has pleaded for you, I'll spare you this time. However, if you want to fight with Zhe, you have to follow the rules of the Xinwu Academy. You have to get into the top 8 first. Otherwise, you don't have the right to fight with Zhe. Elder Beiteng said calmly. What a shameless person. My young master has clearly been severely injured by you. How can he still fight? Wang Yuan berated angrily. Hearing this, Elder Beiteng's face turned cold. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he coldly snorted, Just now, this elder only gave him a small punishment. I didn't injure him to the extent you said. As long as he meditates for a while, he will recover. Sect, Wang Yuan was about to open his mouth to refute, but Wang Kai stopped him with a look. He patted Wang Yuan's shoulder lightly and raised his arm weakly. He pointed to a seat in the distance and said calmly, "Help me back to my seat and meditate." But young master, Wang Yuan and Wang Lai were extremely furious. As martial generals, although they were unable to defeat Elder Beiteng, who was in the martial ancestor realm, they were still able to investigate the severity of their young master's injuries. It was clearly a serious injury that could not be used martial arts, yet it was said to be a light injury. How could they tolerate it? Humph, that Wang Kai really deserves it. How dare he provoke Elder Beiteng again and again? A small punishment is already too light. I think he should be crippled on the spot and thrown out of the Xinwu Academy. But senior brother Wanzhe, the crown prince of the sky-suppressing king, is really open-minded. He was humiliated and scolded by Wang Kai before, but now he actually stood up for him. I really don't know how this Wang Kai is better than him. How dare he try to steal senior brother Wan's woman? I think this Wang Kai can't duel with senior brother Wanzhe. I'm afraid he won't even make it into the top 8 of the disciple recruitment ceremony. With such a bad character, how strong can his martial arts be? As the 5 elders took their seats, the disciples of the Shunwu Academy began to discuss among themselves. They despised Wang Kai for reaping what he sowed and praised Wanja passionately. Wang Kai didn't seem to hear anything. With the help of Wang Yuan and Wang Lai, he returned to his original seat and quietly closed his eyes. He acted as if he was recovering from his injuries and completely ignored the ridicule of the outside world. Haha, he really deserves it. I thought our number 1 braggart of King City was so powerful. Why is he so calm now? Su Ru covered her face and laughed coquettishly. The young masters from the monarch city who were sitting around were also looking at him with mocking gazes. This is called overestimating yourself. Do you really think the marshal's residence is invincible? Now you know what you're capable of? Li Qingfeng laughed coldly. Bang! Lu slammed his chair and stood up abruptly. His face was red with anger as he scolded. What are you all shouting about? Is it fun to hit someone when they're down? Don't forget, no matter how weak young Master Kai is, he's not someone you can provoke. Furthermore, if it were you, would you dare to challenge an elder of the Shinwu Academy? Do you have the guts? Why would we challenge Elder Beitang? We don't have a fiancé and his disciple has taken a fancy to us. Ha ha. Li Qingfeng laughed loudly. Wang Kai slowly opened his eyes and glanced at them indifferently. His cold gaze made them feel suffocated. He laughed coldly and said, "If you don't shut up, I'll send you to hell right now. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the 2nd grade Martial General realm." Whoosh! Hearing this, all the young masters and young mistresses of King City shut their mouth. Although they were angry, they didn't dare to confront Wang Kai directly. After all, they believed Elder Beitang's words that Wang Kai was only lightly injured. If they knew that Wang Kai didn't even have the strength to stand up, what would they think? At the top of the viewing platform, the 5 elders sat side by side. At this moment, Wanja had also arrived behind Elder Beitang and was speaking with his head lowered. Don't worry, I've already heavily injured him. He won't be able to use martial arts for the next 3 days. Even if he's a martial general, he won't be able to defeat you today. He won't even have the strength to fight against the ordinary disciples who participated in the ceremony. Elder Beitang smiled faintly. Wanja's expression changed when he heard this. He said in a low voice, "Master, you're saying that Wang Kai is already a martial general? How is that possible?" "Nothing is impossible. Last night at the mountain gate, he injured 2 disciples who were guarding the mountain. The battle chi he used is indeed something that only a martial general can possess. However, there's no need to worry now. Although he's a martial general, his current strength is no longer comparable to a martial disciple." Elder Beitang said. "Thank you for your kindness, Master," Wanja said respectfully. He was pleasantly surprised, but at the same time, there was still some lingering fear in his heart. He was secretly glad that his master had come in time. Otherwise, if he really did battle with Wang Kai, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 26. Hee, how do you feel? Do you understand that there's always someone better than you? Even though you've started cultivating, there are still many cultivators stronger than you in this world. If you don't change your habits. Hearing the beautiful voice beside his ear, Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and slowly opened his eyes. Seeing the beautiful figure standing in front of him, he couldn't help but grin and say, "So it's my fiancé." Lu Yao frowned slightly. Seeing that he was still frivolous and didn't know how to repent, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but show some disappointment. Her expression was cold as she took out a small white bottle and said, "There's a 2nd-tier heaven-level healing pill in here. It's enough to heal your injuries. A second-tier heaven-level pill. Once these words were spoken, Wang Kai's expression froze. In his memory, the best alchemist in Fanzhou could only refine dawn of the third tier. Every tier of dawn was further divided into 4 tiers: heaven, earth, mysterious, and yellow. Heaven tier was the highest, and a second-tier heaven-level pill was infinitely close to the highest third-tier pill in Fan Province. Its value could be imagined. Even the strongest cultivator in the divine martial dynasty, Wang Shang, would rush like a flock of ducks when he saw a second-tier heaven-level pill. Wang Kai smacked his lips and looked at her serious expression. His pale face couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. Knowing the preciousness of a second-tier heaven-level pill, she was still willing to give it to him. This proved that she still cared about him. He immediately said, "I don't need this pill. You should keep it for yourself." Young master. Wang Yuan and Wang Lai heard everything clearly. If the young master took this pill, his injuries would definitely recover quickly. Who would have thought that he would actually reject it? Although this pill is precious, I have a lot of it. On account of the relationship between the Imperial Advisor's residence and the Marshal's residence, I'll give you one. Before Lu Yao could finish speaking, Wang Kai waved his hand and interrupted her, only to hear him say with a proud smile, "To be able to receive such treatment from you, all my injuries have already been completely healed. Why would I need the help of pills? You really don't know what's good for you. You're obviously heavily injured, but you still don't forget to say such frivolous words. It seems you've lost the determination to defeat Wan Zhi. Fine, then you'll lose to him. Go back to your marshal's residence," Lu Yao said coldly. She put away the pill bottle and turned to leave. Wang Kai's face suddenly darkened. He originally thought that it would be better for her to keep such a precious pill for herself. After all, he had the system to heal his injuries. But who would have thought that she would suddenly say such a thing? Her actions just now, could it be that she didn't care about what he did? "Wait!" Wang Kai called. Lu Yao's figure paused. Her beautiful eyes were filled with disappointment. Was he regretting not accepting the pill now? Was this his true nature? Thinking of this, his tone became colder and colder. "What's the matter? Heh, I don't know why there's another heaven outside the heavens, but I'm very good at it. Do you want to give it a try?" Wang Kai grinned. Swish. As soon as these words came out, Lu Yao was so angry that she stopped breathing. Her beautiful figure suddenly turned around and glared at him with her beautiful eyes. She coldly said, "You wanderer! It doesn't matter what you say about me. However, I will definitely take first place in this ceremony. This is my promise to the old master and Uncle Fu, and also my promise to you. As for that Wan Zhi, can he be on the same level as me?" Wang Kai said with a smile. Lu Yao was stunned when she heard this. A strange light flashed in her beautiful eyes. She looked deeply at him, then turned around and left without saying a word. "Master, since Wang Kai can no longer use martial arts, why don't you let me fight him now?" On the high platform, Wan Zhi gloomily stared at Wang Kai. When he saw Lu Yao leave, he was furious to the extreme. "Today is the palace's disciple recruitment ceremony. How can I let you fight here first? The rules of the palace cannot be broken. Moreover, Lu Yao has no romantic feelings for you. Instead, she has some inexplicable feelings for Wang Kai. If you really want her, let her see Wang Kai's miserable appearance at the ceremony." Beiteng smiled faintly. Wan Zhi's eyes narrowed when he heard this. The gloominess disappeared and was replaced by a smile. Wang Kai was already seriously injured and could no longer use martial arts. It would be easy for him to defeat him. If Wang Kai was defeated by the disciples participating in the ceremony before he was defeated, Lu Yao would probably lose all interest in him. "It's noon. Let's begin the ceremony." Elder Beiteng stood up. His voice rolled out like thunder and spread throughout the arena. Whoosh! Many ordinary disciples and the younger generation of the royal city, who were participating in the disciple recruitment ceremony, immediately became excited when they heard this. Their breathing became heavy and their expressions were determined. They could not help but look at each other as a raging flame flickered in their eyes. Haha, let me host this time's disciple recruitment ceremony. What do the elders think? Elder Lingshu suddenly appeared in the arena. He looked at the 5 elders and smiled faintly. Elder Lingshu? Why is he here? Beitang and the other 4 elders frowned. They were extremely surprised by Elder Lingshu's appearance. Since Elder Lingshu is willing to host this ceremony, we naturally have no objections. The 5 elders stood up and nodded with a smile. Oh my God! That's Elder Lingshu. More than 50 years ago, he retired from the Hall of Elders and set up the courtyard of the spiritual pivot behind the scenes. He's in charge of receiving foreign guests. Now that he's hosting the ceremony, does he want to return to the Hall of Elders? Not necessarily. I heard that Elder Lingshu has a strange temper. When he retired from the Elders' Hall more than 50 years ago, he said that if the Beitang family continued to be in charge of the Xinwu Academy, he would not return to the Elders' Hall. Even if the academy was in danger of being destroyed, he would not care. Many disciples of the Xinwu Academy exclaimed and discussed. Obviously, they were as shocked by Elder Lingshu's appearance as the 5 elders. This old man is so awesome? Even the Beitang family, who controls the Xinwu Academy, publicly threatened him? Wang Kai smacked his lips. He could not believe it. In Wang Kai's opinion, Elder Lingshu was just a receptionist. Then, let's invite the participants to the battle arena. The requirements to determine the winner are simple. First, you have to lose the ability to fight again. Second, you have to admit defeat. Third, you have to be kicked out of the battle arena. The final 16 winners would then fight each other one-on-one. The final 8 winners will become disciples of the academy. Elder Lingshu smiled faintly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, more than 300 people stepped onto the battle arena. However, just as they were waiting for Elder Lingshu to announce the start of the ceremony, they saw a figure walking over unsteadily. Chapter 27. Isn't that Wang Kai? He actually pretended to be seriously injured. Is he trying to gain sympathy? Humph, Elder Beitang clearly only gave him a small punishment. He did not injure him to this extent. This person is really shameless. I don't think so. If he really pretended to be seriously injured, he will definitely be attacked when the battle royale starts. At that time, everything will be exposed. However, he clearly knows this and still pretends to be extremely weak. Could it be that he was secretly injured by Elder Beitang? What a bunch of nonsense. Elder Beitang is a martial ancestor realm expert. Why would he secretly scheme against a junior? I think that Wang Kai must have pretended to be seriously injured on purpose to slander Elder Beitang. No matter what it is, we will find out soon. Many of the ordinary disciples of the Xinwu Academy, who had come to watch the grand ceremony, were whispering to each other. Some of them even started to argue with each other. Most of them thought that Wang Kai was pretending to be seriously injured. At the same time, there was also a small group of people who thought that Wang Kai was really seriously injured. Bastard! Wang Kai, Master Beitang didn't attack you so heavily, so why are you still pretending to be weak and heavily injured? What are you trying to do? Could it be that you are afraid of me and want to use this opportunity to slander Master Beitang and injure you so that you can cancel the battle with me? On the main viewing platform, Wanja's face was gloomy as he scolded. Although he already knew that Wang Kai was seriously injured, he could not let this matter be true. Otherwise, even if he won in the end, he was afraid that it would leave a bad reputation. Forget it, Zhe. Justice is in everyone's heart. Elder Beitang waved his hand indifferently and turned to look at Wang Kai, who had already stepped onto the battle arena. He said indifferently, Wang Kai, if you really think that your injuries are so serious, then I can make the decision to postpone the battle between the two of you for a few days until your so-called injuries have fully recovered. What do you think? As soon as these words came out, Wanja's complexion abruptly changed. If the duel was delayed for a few days, once Wang Kai recovered from his injuries, it would be difficult to predict who would emerge victorious. Thinking of this, Wanja quickly whispered, Honorable Master Beitang. Humph, it is indeed Wang Kai who is pretending. That's right, Elder Beitang should not have given him such a chance. I think that he is afraid of Senior Wanja and wants to take the opportunity to slip away. Beitang, Elder Beitang, the Shunwu Academy's rules. Once you step onto the battle arena, you're not allowed to leave the stages to end. That's right, Elder Beitang, why do you have to treat him like this? This person is narrow-minded and wants to take the opportunity to slander you. Elder, please do not fall into his trap. Many of the ordinary disciples of the Shunwu Academy voiced their opinions. In the end, some of the participating disciples who were standing on the battle arena spoke up to stop Elder Beitang. At this moment, Wanja finally understood Master Beitang's intentions. He couldn't help but feel secretly happy. Being tolerant towards one's enemy was the best way to hide one's true intentions. Seeing the expressions of the ordinary disciples, it was enough to prove the results of Master Beitang's actions. Wang Kai walked onto the battle arena, panting heavily. He raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat off his forehead and looked at Elder Beitang with a playful expression. He smiled indifferently and said, Thank you for your concern, Elder. However, I do not need to postpone the battle. The battle that was agreed upon is today, and it must be carried out on time. Ben Shao has always been a man of his word. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Hearing this, everyone looked at him with disdain. Even if he agreed to postpone the battle for a few days, would the Shunwu Academy's rules allow it? Would the disciples participating in the ceremony allow it? No matter which one it was, the matter of the duel would definitely not be postponed. However, there were some who secretly admired Wang Kai. To be able to fake it to such an extent, it was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Humph, you ungrateful fool. On the battle arena, a Shunwu Academy disciple scolded. He turned to Elder Lingshu and respectfully asked for instructions. Elder, please announce the start of the battle. We do not want such a scheming person to linger on the sacred battle arena for a moment longer. That's right, Elder Lingshu. Please announce the start of the battle. Many of the ordinary disciples asked for instructions. Elder Lingshu nodded slightly and looked meaningfully at Wang Kai. She said indifferently, The battle begins. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Lingshu's figure rose into the air. After he disappeared from the fighting ring, many disciples who were participating in the ceremony quickly retreated and distanced themselves from each other. Their eyes scanned back and forth, guarding against each other while also looking for their respective opponent. Why are you all running to the side? Are you trying to bully me because my legs are not agile enough? Wang Kai touched his nose and looked extremely wronged as he moved on the battle arena. However, the speed at which he staggered with each step was really unflattering. Everyone, let's first expel this despicable person from the battle arena, then proceed with the battle. What do you think? The young disciple who had asked Elder Lingshu to start the battle earlier said. All right. We also happen to have. However, before they could finish their words, they saw Wang Kai sitting on the ground with a plop. He stretched out his hand and slowly took out stacks of silver notes from his chest and waved them at them. Those who voluntarily leave will be rewarded with 100,000 silver note. Those who can protect me will be rewarded with 1,000,000 silver notes. Whoosh! Once these words were spoken, it instantly caused all the disciples who were watching the martial arts battle to be dumbfounded. Even the 5 elders on the main viewing platform had their faces suddenly stiffened. No one had thought that this fellow would actually come up with such a method. 100,000 taels of silver might not be much to the young masters and ladies of the royal city, but to the ordinary disciples of the Shunwu Academy, this was definitely a decent amount. After all, not everyone was lucky enough to be born into a good family. Among these ordinary disciples, most of them did not have any family background. As for 1 million silver, it would make these ordinary disciples even more crazy. However, if they could successfully enter the top 8 of the grand ceremony, it would mean that they could become a core disciple. At that time, their value would definitely increase, and 1 million silver would not be a big deal to them. For a moment, the crowd struggled and hesitated, causing a short silence on the battle arena. This guy must be pretending. The young masters and ladies of King City secretly despised Wang Kai, but they did not dare to make a move, nor did they dare to say anything. They thought that Wang Kai must be doing this on purpose. Even if they wanted to beat him up, no one dared to do so. Seeing this, Wang Kai slightly narrowed his eyes and took out stacks of silver notes from his chest again. He smiled faintly and said, "You can rest assured that Ben Shao does not lack silver notes. As long as you voluntarily leave, you can get silver notes from me. Also, you have to think carefully. Can you really make it into the top 8 of the grand ceremony? This time, we need the top 8 disciples, not hundreds of disciples. No matter how strong or confident you are, in the end, only 8 people can become core disciples." Chapter 28. How dare you? How can we allow you to ruin the Shunwu Academy's disciple recruitment ceremony with such despicable means? While many disciples were hesitating, Elder Bei Tang stood up and reprimanded them with an ugly expression on his face. The other elders also had angry expressions on their faces. They had actually used banknotes to bribe the disciples. Such a method was completely disgraceful to the sacred ceremony of accepting disciples. Master Beitang is right. Such a despicable person does not deserve to be a disciple of the Shunwu Academy. Furthermore, you could have directly defeated him and expelled him from the battle arena. According to the Academy's rules, the defeated party's belongings can be taken away by the winner. Wanja sneered. Since things had come to this point, how could he allow Wang Kai to get away with it? Swoosh. The disciples who had participated in the battle were suddenly awakened. They looked greedily at Wang Kai before bowing respectfully to the elders. Their faces were full of shame as they clasped their fists and said, "We have disgraced the academy by being deceived by Wang Kai. Elders, please punish us." Since you did not accept his banknotes, this proves that you still remember the academy's rules. We will not punish you this time. However, if there is a next time, you will be severely punished. Elder Beitang sneered. "We will follow Elder's instructions," the disciples hurriedly said. "TSK, TSK. Wang Kai could not help but laugh out loud. He looked at Wanja with disdain and said, "I would like to ask, since the Shunwu Academy has a rule that the defeated party's belongings will be taken away, why can't you use your belongings to make others give up? What a load of nonsense. After a fair battle, the defeated party's belongings can only be said to be inferior. However, you did not dare to have a fair battle. Instead, you used banknotes to bribe people. Isn't this unfair?" Wanja sneered. Clatter. Wang Kai threw the banknotes on the ground and said with disdain, "What's the difference between this and the actions of a bandit? Is the Shunwu Academy a place to train bandits? I've really opened my eyes today. This is the law of the jungle. If you don't think you can pass the recruitment ceremony, then get the hell out of the Shunwu Academy. If you can't even defeat the junior brothers in the martial mentor realm, then cancel the duel with me. I don't want to bully the weak." Wanja sneered. Senior brother Wan is right. No wonder Elder Beitang thinks so highly of him. Be it in terms of character or martial arts realm, we are ashamed to admit our inferiority. That's right, we will definitely follow Senior Brother Wan's example. Many of the ordinary disciples who were watching the fight, as well as the disciples who were participating in the fight, praised him one after another. Everyone's faces were filled with deep admiration. F***CK. If this kind of trash can become the role model of the Shenwu Academy, then I will definitely be the role model of the entire Fan province. Wang Kai pretended to be shocked as he exclaimed. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. A mere piece of trash dares to insult Senior Brother Wan time and time again. Today, I will let you know the power of a Shenwu Academy disciple. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, hundreds of ordinary disciples began to circulate their battle cheese. Waves of green light flashed as their feet touched the ground, and their bodies rapidly charged towards Wang Kai. Seeing the disciples charging towards him, Wang Kai's heart was extremely gloomy. Originally, he had wanted to hide it for a while longer. After all, Elder Beitang had already made his move once, and there was no guarantee that he would secretly do something to Wang Kai again. But now, it seemed that there was no way to continue hiding it. Recover, swoosh. If the two of us can help you successfully advance to the next round and become one of the last 16 people, how much money will you give us? Just as Wang Kai was urging the system to heal his injuries, 2 young men suddenly appeared beside him. They were about 20 years old, and both wore black robes. One of them held a silver-white longsword, while the other held a broken black longsword. They surrounded Wang Kai from both sides. Originally, Wang Kai thought that they would attack him, but who would have thought that he would hear such a sentence? Wang Kai squinted his eyes and glanced at the 2 of them. He discovered that the 2 of them were both martial masters of grade 9. Among the participating disciples, they were considered to be of the highest level. If they were to help, they would definitely be able to help him advance to the next round. Thinking of this, Wang Kai immediately said softly, 10 million taels each. It's Ling Feng and Can Ren. Those participating disciples who had arrived late saw the 2 young men standing beside Wang Kai, and their expressions became nervous as they stopped moving. Young Master Kai, I will protect you. Bang bang bang, a series of earth-shaking noises could be heard, as Fatso Lu carried his nearly 300 pounds weight and rushed over with a long saber in each hand. When he got close to Ling Feng and Broken Blade, his eyes turned fierce as he swung his saber down at Ling Feng and Broken Blade. Ding dang! Ding dang! Seeing this, Ling Feng and Can Ren frowned slightly. Both of them stepped aside and easily dodged the sword slashes. They then raised their feet and stepped on Lu Li's longsword. Do we need to expel this person? Can Ren asked with a grin. As soon as these words came out, Lu was stunned. Originally, he wanted to give up on his long sword and fight with his bare hands, but now his face trembled violently as he exclaimed, Do you know young Master Kai? Wang Kai grinned. Since Ling Feng and Can Ren asked him for instructions, it meant that the deal was a success. He was not surprised that Fatso Lu would rush over to protect him. This guy was definitely here for the Black Dragon Blade. Send him flying, there's no need to expel him, Wang Kai said with a playful smile. Bang! Bang! Ah! Young Master Kai, how can you be so heartless? Instantly, under the combined attack of Ling Feng and Broken Blade, Fatso Lu was directly sent flying by the 2 palms. He cried out loudly as he flew back more than 20 meters. With a putong sound, he fell to the ground. His body twitched a few times before his eyes rolled back and he stopped moving. The 2 of us want everything that this person has on him. Can Ren licked his lips and grinned evilly. He raised his hand and rubbed his bald head forcefully. As he grinned, the scar on his left cheek wriggled, making him look extremely ferocious. That's right. By the side, Ling Feng coldly spat out these 2 words. His appearance was extremely ordinary, but his icy cold aura, which seemed to indicate that no one should approach him, made him appear extremely dangerous. The two strongest ordinary disciples of Shen Wu Academy, Ling Feng and Can Rin. Damn it, they actually got it first. Forget it, we're definitely no match for the two brothers. Let's not provoke them. Many of the participating students shook their heads and sighed. They glanced at Wang Kai unwillingly, then retreated quickly to choose their opponent. Battle chi swirled in the air, and in an instant a fierce competition began. Chapter 29. First Battle, Can Rin, Li Qingfeng. Elder Ling Shu smiled faintly. His figure was still floating in the air, and he had never left. Such a strong battle chi was not something an ordinary martial ancestor could achieve. Hearing this, Can Rin grinned and rubbed his bald head. He looked at Wang Kai with a mocking smile and said, "You're lucky." "Yes, your luck is indeed good." Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders, his pale face filled with a playful smile. Shwa shwa. On the battle stage, Li Qingfeng and Can Rin looked at each other. One was a 7th grade martial master, while the other was a 9th grade martial master. This battle was not comparable at all. The spectating disciples were also not interested. Li Qingfeng of the Li family, one of the 4 major families of King City, right? Can Rin licked his lips and smiled. Li Qingfeng was originally nervous. After all, there was a difference of 2 grades between them. However, when he heard Can Ren's words, his expression became arrogant. He took out a long sword from his waist and said, "That's right. If you are willing to withdraw, the Li family will give you many benefits." Idiot! Idiot! They originally thought that Can Rin would be afraid of the 4 great families, but who would have thought that they would hear 2 insults in succession? One of them was from Can Rin, who was standing opposite them, and the other was from Wang Kai, who was watching from below the stage. Li Qingfeng was furious. He did not expect this outcome. He did not dare to refute Wang Kai's insult. However, he was humiliated by an ordinary disciple. An ordinary disciple with no family background dares to insult my Li family? Do you want to die? Li Qingfeng shouted angrily. Can Rin licked his lips when he heard this. He suddenly raised his black broken sword and grinned. "I asked you if you are the Li family's boy because your answer will decide what I will do next. Since you are, now leave all the things you have on you, and I will beat you gently." You don't know your place." Li Qingfeng sneered and swung his sword diagonally. Streaks of green battle chi instantly covered the blade of the sword. Sure bing. It's actually a master-level weapon. Everyone widened their eyes and stared longingly at his long sword with bloodshot eyes. To be able to integrate battle force, it was definitely a master-level weapon. Ordinary weapons could not accept battle force, nor could they withstand the coverage of battle force. Haha, master-level sword. Not bad. It seems that I have gained a lot today. Can Ren's eyes narrowed as he looked at the long sword in his hand. He could not help but laugh ferociously. However, just as Li Qingfeng was about to attack, Broken Blade's broken black sword was also covered in green battle chi. The intensity of the battle chi was even higher than Li Qingfeng's. "You're just an ordinary disciple. How could you have a master-level weapon?" Li Qingfeng was shocked when he saw this. He quickly stopped his attack and his face turned pale. "Get out. Since you've given me a master-level weapon, I don't want anything else." Can Ren's figure rapidly approached. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Li Qingfeng. The broken blade suddenly swept upwards. "There's a difference between master-level weapons. You're just an ordinary disciple. How can you compare to my clang?" Before Li Qingfeng could finish his words, the long sword that he was about to stab out was swept upwards by the black sword. His arm that was holding the sword was driven by the huge force and his whole arm was strangely thrown back. The long sword also fell out of his hand and pierced into the arena. "You're too weak." Can Rin sneered disdainfully. He turned around and kicked Li Qingfeng out of the arena with his battle chi. Can Rin wins. Next battle, Ling Feng, Su Yi. Elder Lingshu announced expressionlessly. There's simply no comparison between these few fights. Wang Kai sat below the arena and shook his head. He secretly felt bored. The difference in battle chi was only 1 or even 2 levels. Even if Li Qingfeng had a master-level weapon, he could not win. What's more, who could guarantee that the others would not also have a master-level weapon like Canren? I admit defeat. Su Yi did not even step onto the arena. He directly cupped his fist and admitted defeat. His strength was almost the same as Li Qingfeng's. Even if he had a master-level weapon, he was easily defeated. He had already lost the will to fight on the arena. But fortunately, Su Yi did not take out his master-level weapon, nor did he step onto the arena. Otherwise, he would have been robbed. Ling Feng won without a fight. Next battle, Lu Lu, Gao Song. Elder Lingshu said indifferently. Gao Song, an ordinary disciple, was one of the 2 8th-level martial artists. Lu Lu of the Lu family, one of the 4 aristocratic families? Gao Song stood on the arena and asked with a cold smile. Lu Li's face twitched when he heard the words. He suddenly took out the long sabers on his waist and said disdainfully, "Don't pretend to be strong in front of me. Do you want to be like that bald donkey? Unfortunately, I'm not an idiot like Li Qingfeng." Swish. Gao Song's face immediately turned pale. He said coldly, "Since you're one of the 4 aristocratic families, you should also have a master-level weapon. Why don't you take it out? Instead, you took out 2 ordinary weapons. Are you looking down on me? F***CKU. My master-level weapon is with you." Lu roared angrily. He had been depressed every day because he could not get his black dragon blade back. Now that he was mentioned, his anger was ignited. Without saying anything, he rushed over with the 2 long sabers. Wang Kai's face darkened when he heard the words. His forehead was full of black lines. He stared at Lu fiercely and gritted his teeth. "Damn fatty, you don't forget to mention Ben Shao when you're scolding people. You're really my good brother." "Is he your brother?" Your brother is really good." Canren grinned and habitually raised his hand to wipe his bald head. No one knew what he thought, but his face suddenly twitched violently and his arms stiffened. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and turned his head to look at Canren's stiff movement. Immediately, a smile appeared on his face. He gave a thumbs up and praised, "Your bald head is very bright, ha ha ha. Lu wins this battle." Next battle, Su Ru, Fong Tianlei. With Elder Lingshu's announcement, Wang Kai was stunned. He looked at Gao Song, who was fiercely pressed to the ground and beaten by Fatty Lu. He smiled unexpectedly and said, "It seems that this fatty has made a breakthrough in his cultivation. Haha, let's see who dares to act tough in front of me." Lu laughed heartily. He stood up and clapped his hands. Then, he ruthlessly kicked Gao Song, who had fainted, out of the battle arena. Su Ru, Su Yi, Qingfeng Li, Fatso Lu, all of them already have opponents. It seems like I have no choice but to recover from my injuries. Wang Kai shrugged helplessly and secretly activated his mind. Recover from your injuries. Congratulations to the host for successfully recovering to his peak state. One bragging point was consumed. Chapter 30. Idiot. Elder Beitong's face was ashen. He was furious at Wanzha's impulsive words. He stared at Wang Kai and clenched his fists. He wanted to kill Wang Kai on the spot, but when he thought of what Elder Lingshu had just said, he could only restrain his killing intent. Master, this disciple was too impulsive. Wanzha's face was unsightly. If it wasn't for Wang Kai's higher cultivation, he wouldn't have panicked and blurted out the fact that Elder Beitang had injured him. Now that he was reprimanded by Elder Beitang, his resentment towards Wang Kai became even more intense. Forget it. You just need to take that brat Wang Kai's head later. Elder Beitang coldly said. Wanzha's expression changed when he heard this. His battle chi was easily destroyed by Wang Kai. This proved that their cultivation wasn't on the same level. If they really fought, he would definitely be humiliated. As the crown prince of the suppressing heavenly king, how could he allow himself to be tainted? Thinking of this, he quickly whispered, "Master, that Wang Kai's cultivation, idiot? His cultivation is definitely not higher than a second-grade martial general. Later I will give you a pill that can temporarily raise your cultivation to a second-grade martial general. Then you can use the Netherworld sword to fight him and naturally you will win." Elder Beiteng said in a deep voice. "Thank you for your kindness, Master." Wanja's face was filled with joy as he quickly bowed. When he looked at Wang Kai again, his eyes were filled with coldness. Elder Beiteng gently nodded and glanced at Elder Lingshu. He secretly sneered in his heart, "If you don't return to the Elder Hall this time, the Beiteng family will no longer condone your impudence." That little bastard Wanja, why does it seem like he's acting all high and mighty again? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and glanced at him in surprise. He directly sat down beside Lu Lu. Lu Li's expression was still shaken. Just now, he really thought that even if he didn't die, he would at least be seriously injured. Now that the crisis had been resolved, he shook his big face and raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat from his forehead, asking in a dry voice, "Young Lord Kai, were you the one who did that?" "Of course. This young master is wise, mighty, upright, and outspoken. There's nothing this young master can't do. Not to mention a mere little bastard like Wanja. Even if those 5 elders attacked together, I would still be able to defeat them easily." Wang Kai smiled indifferently. "Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point." Fatso Lu was completely awakened when he heard this. He smacked his lips and muttered, "Fortunately, the person sitting next to me is indeed a boastful young master. I will definitely have good fortune after surviving a great disaster. Ha! Pa!" Immediately, Fatso Lu slapped his thigh, stood up, and gave a thumbs up, exclaiming loudly, "Young Lord Kai, your bragging is really high." Wang Kai's face suddenly darkened when he heard this. He glared at him fiercely and sneered, "Damn fatty, did you rely on this to distinguish whether Ben Chao is real or not? Of course, young Lord Kai is the #1 boastful god in King City. He's the role model of my generation. I've heard of his bragging from 1,000 miles away, so I'll definitely be able to recognize young Lord Kai." Fatso Lu laughed and praised. At least you're sensible. I've decided to agree to the bragging alliance you mentioned last time." Wang Kai shrugged and looked at him with an inexplicable expression. Fatso Lu immediately perked up when he heard this. He sat next to Wang Kai and winked at him, saying, "Young Lord Kai, you're really wise and domineering. As long as we join forces, we'll have endless money." Wang Kai nodded and snorted softly. However, he sneered in his heart and thought to himself, "Damn fatty, when the bragging alliance is established, I'll definitely make you a monk." Wang Kai is already at the martial general realm. He's disqualified from the martial arts ceremony. Qi Jin won this battle without a fight. Elder Lingshu's voice suddenly sounded, which surprised many disciples, but at the same time, they felt that it was reasonable. The disciples who participated in the martial arts ceremony were all at the martial master realm. They could not compete with the martial general realm. Even if all of them fought together, they would undoubtedly suffer a crushing defeat. Beiteng Tianlei, Lu Lu, Canren, Ling Feng, and Qi Jin, these 5 people will directly advance to the top 8. Su Yi, Gao Song, Li Qingfeng, and Su Ru, these 4 people will fight in pairs to determine the final 3 winners. Elder Lingshu said lightly. When the crowd heard this, they couldn't help but feel a little dispirited. After seeing Wang Kai's true cultivation level, they were all looking forward to the battle between him and Wanzhou. A battle between martial generals was definitely more exciting than a battle between martial masters. Elder Lingshu, Su Ru will directly advance to the top 8, Beiteng Tianlei suddenly said. Su Ru, who was below the stage, was delighted when she heard this. She blushed and said crisply, Senior Brother Beiteng, you don't have to violate the rules of the ceremony. It doesn't matter. The Beiteng family is the master of the Shunwu Academy. As a direct descendant of the Beiteng family, I naturally can't go back on my words. Beiteng Tianlei smiled proudly. F***ck, not only do the Beiteng family know how to boast, but they also have such poor taste. Of all the girls they like, why don't they look at a girl like this? You actually took a fancy to such an ugly woman. Aren't you afraid that you'll be scared to the point of collapsing when you're having fun at night? Wang Kai laughed disdainfully. Fatty Lu, who was beside him, could not hold back his temper and immediately said, Young Master Kai, you are wrong. When we have sex at night, as long as we don't light up candles, we won't be able to see each other's faces. I think with such a domineering name like Beiteng Tianlei, he will definitely shoot until dawn. Haha, that's a good idea. Very good. Wang Kai laughed heartily as he and Fatty Lu put their arms around each other's shoulders and continued to tease each other. Swoosh. As soon as he said this, the entire crowd burst into laughter. The laughter was like waves, each wave louder than the previous one. Beiteng Tianlei's face immediately darkened. Wang Kai, don't think that just because you are the only son of the Marshal's mansion, you can do whatever you want in the Shunwu Academy. Senior Brother Beiteng's status is not something you can insult. Su Ru scolded with an ashen face. With Beiteng Tianlei's approval, the fear she had for Wang Kai had completely disappeared. Beiteng Tianlei's expression softened slightly when he heard this. He waved the long spear in his hand and said coldly, Wang Kai, don't think that the martial general realm is invincible. As long as I want to, I can break through to the general realm in a few days. When that time comes, I will definitely come and take your life. Senior Brother Beiteng, don't think too highly of him. I'm afraid that when that day comes, he will be so scared that he will hide in the Marshal's mansion and not dare to come out. Everyone here from Royal City knows that he only has this little ability. Su Ru sneered and ridiculed. However, Wang Kai did not continue their conversation. He only glanced at them with a disdainful gaze before lowering his head and chatting with Fatty Lu beside him. Beiteng Tianlei and Su Ru were even more furious when they saw Su Mo's attitude. It was as if they had punched cotton and it had no effect at all. At this moment, silence spoke louder than words. Chapter 31. This battle Su Yi wins. Advance to the top 8. Following Elder Lingshu's announcement, all the spectating disciples cheered. Since the top 8 disciples had all been selected, the following martial arts competition would be a ranking battle for the top 8. In the ranking battle, if one could obtain a good ranking and display a strong martial arts, he would be valued by the 5 elders. Once he was valued, he would be promoted to a core disciple and enjoy the right to practice the first half of the Grandmaster level cultivation method. However, the disciples were not looking forward to the ranking battle for the top 8 disciples. The top 8 disciples were all in the martial master realm, while Wang Kai and Wan Zhe were both in the martial general realm. It was needless to say which of the two would be more exciting. But Wang Kai has already been disqualified from the martial arts competition ceremony by Elder Lingshu because he is in the martial general realm. If he doesn't advance to the top 8, that means he can't become a disciple of Shunwu Academy. Does that mean he doesn't have the right to duel with Senior Brother Wan? That might not necessarily be the case. Since Wang Kai is already at the martial general realm, even if he participates in the martial competition ceremony, no one will be able to compete with him. Not to mention a mere top 8, he can even easily obtain first place. That's right. His martial arts realm has already proven everything. Now it's up to Senior Brother Wan to duel with Wang Kai. Just now, Wang Kai casually destroyed his battle chi. Their martial arts realms are still far apart. Many disciples were discussing the duel between Wang Kai and Wan Zhi. This caused the few people who had successfully advanced to the top 8 to lose interest. In the face of a duel between martial generals, it didn't matter who they were ranked at all. The top 8 disciples have already been selected. However, the ranking battle will be held later. Wang Kai, do you want to duel with Wan Zhi? Elder Lingshu smiled indifferently, her eyes filled with inexplicable meaning. Wang Kai's expression was extremely disdainful. He slowly stood up and flicked his wrinkled clothes. He smiled casually and said, "Of course. I'm afraid that little bastard Wan won't dare to accept the challenge." Swish. Why wouldn't I dare? Although you haven't advanced into the top 8, and logically speaking, you don't have the qualifications to fight me, but since you're already a martial general, why don't I give you a chance? Get your ass on the stage. Wan Zhi sneered. He leaped into the air and landed easily on the fighting ring after reaching a height of more than 20 meters. Hee, since both of you have made up your minds, let's begin. Elder Lingshu smiled faintly. Seeing this, Wang Kai's expression was extremely disdainful. He stared at him with contempt and said disdainfully, "Isn't it just going up the battle arena? Was there a need to be so pretentious? Do you think you're very good at acting tough?" Air step. Patter. Patter. Wang Kai's figure rose into the air. Both of his feet moved continuously, and the air that he stepped on exploded into ripples. Ah! Young Master Kai was mighty and domineering. It's much more awesome than the one who rolled in the air. Lu immediately clapped his hands and exclaimed loudly. Wang Kai is only a martial general, but he can walk in the air like a martial ancestor realm expert. This is definitely an exquisite martial skill. It seems that it will be difficult for senior brother Wan to defeat him. Just by entering the arena, they are already one level apart. How can they compete? Hearing the discussions of the spectating disciples, Wan Zhi stood in the fighting ring and felt extremely embarrassed. His cheeks were burning as he gloomily stared at Wang Kai, who was walking in the air, and his heart was filled with jealousy. Damn it, this air step martial skill, I must get it. Wan Zhi sneered in his heart. Wang Kai looked indifferent. His clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. He landed steadily on the fighting ring with his hands behind his back. He shook his head and sighed. There are countless people who act tough in this world. Why am I the only one who is pretentious? As soon as Wang Kai said that, the faces of the disciples who were watching the battle froze. The 5 elders in the stands and Elder Lingshu, who was high in the air, twitched their faces violently. They had a better understanding of Wang Kai's personality. Wang Kai, today you will definitely die. Whether it's your air step martial skill or your head, you must leave them behind. Wan Zhi sneered. He waved his hand in the air, and a streamer flashed out from his space ring. An exquisite longsword appeared in his hand. A master-level weapon? Wang Kai squinted his eyes. He suddenly understood why this guy dared to fight with him. It turned out that he had a master-level weapon to protect himself. Haha, this sword is called Netherworld, a top master-level weapon. It is 5 feet long and as wide as a finger. It is made of Netherworld cold iron. The blade contains the death chi of the underworld. Once it touches the blade, you will fall into the underworld forever. Wan Zhi laughed proudly. Gosh, it's the Netherworld sword. Isn't that Elder Beitong's sword? Rumor has it that the death aura of this sword is extremely tyrannical. When Elder Beitong was young, he used the might of this sword to kill a superior martial general who was 5 grades above him when he was a lower-grade martial general. The spectating disciples were shocked. They looked at the long sword as if they were looking at an evil spirit from hell. Their souls could not help but tremble. Beitong Hong, I didn't expect you to disregard the dignity of an elder. The Shunwu Academy cannot be controlled by the Beitang family. Elder Ling Shu, who was floating in the air, stared coldly at the longsword. Her heart was filled with anger. He did not care about his status as an elder. He used his Zong realm power to suppress the younger generation. Now, he even gave the Netherworld sword to Wanzhou. Such blatant cheating and protection made people feel disgusted. Yo-yo, so this is what you are relying on? A lower general can kill an upper general with this sword? I'm afraid it was a sneak attack. There is a gap of 5 grades between them. No matter how strange this sword's ability is, it can't be that easy to kill an upper general. Wang Kai's expression was full of disdain. Elder Beitang, who was sitting at the head of the table, was so angry that he gritted his teeth. His eyes flashed with a cold light. He suddenly shouted, "Sure!" Swoosh! Wanzhou's expression turned cold. He immediately used his battle chi to cover the Netherworld sword. He swung the Netherworld sword down from a distance of a few dozen meters. Swoosh! A green longsword condensed from battle chi shot out. It was so fast that it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Air step! Pa-pa-pa! Pa-cha! Wang Kai's figure leaped into the air and dodged the slash of the sword blade. He lowered his head and looked at the battle arena that had a crack. He could not help but smack his lips and said disdainfully, "Is this all you've got? If I were to attack, I would be able to cut the battle stage in half with one move." Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the 3rd grade Martial General realm. Wang De, stop bragging. This battle stage is made of white jade that is 10,000 years old. Even an upper general would not be able to break a piece of white jade. Wanzhou laughed coldly. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows. He suppressed the joy of breaking through and looked at Wanzhou with a playful expression. He sneered. Are you telling me that your Netherworld sword is awesome? Chapter 32. Young Master Kai, use the Black Dragon Blade to kill this pretentious guy. The Black Dragon Blade is not afraid of the death chi of the underworld. Below the stage, Lulu suddenly stood up and shouted. His face was filled with unspeakable bitterness. His heart was filled with bitterness. He was afraid that Wang Kai would really be defeated by the Netherworld sword. At that time, the Black Dragon Blade would really change hands. Black Dragon Blade? Elder Beitang's expression changed when he heard this. The other 4 elders also narrowed their eyes. As elders of the Shunwu Academy, they naturally knew about the Black Dragon Blade. The reason why the Lu family could be ranked first among the 4 big families was because of the Black Dragon Blade's power. Could it be that the Lu family's most precious treasure is in the hands of Wang Kai? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and looked at Fatso Lu with a playful expression. Looking at Fatso Lu's forced expression, he suddenly understood why Fatso Lu was willing to take the initiative to ask him to use the Black Dragon Blade. Fatso Lu was definitely afraid that if he lost, the Black Dragon Blade would be taken away by Wanzhou. Wang Kai die. Xiao xiao. Xiao xiao. Wanzhou's expression was cold as he shouted. Like a crazy demon, he continuously waved the Netherworld sword and slashed at the sky. Sword blades condensed from battle chi shot out one after another. Among the green battle chi blades, there were traces of black death chi from the underworld. It was like a huge sword net that exploded in the sky. Young Master! Young Master Kai! Wang Yuan and Wang Lai exclaimed when they saw this. Fatso Lu's expression also changed. TSK, are you an idiot? Why would you shout in advance when you want to launch a sneak attack? Are you retarded? Wang Kai sneered disdainfully. His body was unscathed as he stood in the air. In his hand was a black dagger. With a few gentle strokes, the battle chi blades mixed with death chi of the underworld were all destroyed. It can actually resist the death chi of the underworld. How is this possible? Wanja's face was filled with shock as he shouted. His hand that was holding the netherworld's sword began to tremble. His cultivation realm was far lower than Wang Kai's, and he couldn't walk in the air, so he could only rely on his battle chi. If he couldn't even catch Wang Kai, how was he supposed to fight? Wang Kai's expression was indifferent. He cleared his throat, squared the black dagger in his palm, and chuckled softly. This dagger is called Black Dragon. It's long. Ahem, it's not long, nor is it thick. It can cut down shameless elders and cut down shameless disciples. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Crack, crack. Elder Beitang, who was sitting at the head of the table, was livid when he heard Wang Kai's words. He suddenly clenched his fists and crushed the chair into pieces. He could no longer tolerate Wang Kai's insult. Bastard! Whoosh! Elder Lingshu's figure flashed and blocked in front of Wang Kai. She casually waved her hand and dissipated the pressure. Beitang Hong, you have interfered too many times in the duels between the younger generation. Elder Lingshu said indifferently. Elder Beitang's face became colder and colder. He said in a deep voice, Elder Lingshu, the black dragon blade in Wang Kai's hand doesn't belong to him. It's the most precious treasure of the Lu family, the head of the 4 great families in King City. Although I don't know where he got it, it can't be used in the martial competition ceremony. Are you kidding? You can give your netherworld sword to little bastard. Why can't I use the black dragon blade? Wang Kai said disdainfully. At this moment, Fatty Lu also stood up and echoed, waving his arms as he shouted, That's right, young Master Kai and I are brothers who grew up together. The Marshal's mansion and the Lu family have been friends for generations. Back then, old Marshal Wang also used the black dragon blade to kill enemies on the battlefield. Today, I will lend the black dragon blade to young Master Kai. Is there anything wrong with that? Presumptuous. The netherworld sword is a gift this elder gave to Zhe as a disciple, it is not a loan. The netherworld sword is already Zhe's possession, so naturally he can use it anywhere he wants. If you really have deep brotherly love, then give the black dragon blade to Wang Kai and this elder will not stop you. Elder Beitang coldly snorted. As soon as this remark came out, Fatty Lu's face stiffened. The black dragon blade was the most precious treasure of the Lu family. If it was really given to Wang Kai, the status of the Lu family among the 4 great families would plummet. They would probably be expelled from the 4 great families. How could Fatty Lu dare to make such a serious decision at will? Elder Beitang was well aware of the importance of the black dragon blade to the Lu family, so he made such a request. As long as the people present were not fools, they could guess 1 or 2 things. I don't need to blacken. So what if I give the black dragon blade to young Master Kai? Just as Wang Kai was about to put away the black dragon blade with a faint smile, Fatty Lu's eyes turned red. He suddenly interrupted him with a loud shout. So what if I give the black dragon blade to young Master Kai? As soon as his voice fell, the whole audience was so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. There was only the sound of Fatty Lu's heavy breathing. Countless pairs of eyes looked at him. Once the black dragon blade was given away, the Lu family would no longer be the head of the 4 great families. Wang Kai's expression was stunned. His heart was beating violently, as if something had touched him. He looked at Fatty Lu with an unprecedentedly dignified expression. No matter if he said these words because of impulse or because of other reasons, this brother was a brother. At this moment, the various elders had also just regained their wits. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at Lu and secretly sighed. Just how deep was the brotherly relationship between him and Wang Kai? How could he joke about the future of the entire family? Presumptuous! Do you have the right to decide to give away the black dragon blade? Are you the head of the Lu family? Elder Beitang angrily rebuked. Enough! Suddenly, Elder Lingshu shouted in a deep voice. She stared coldly at Beitang Hong and said coldly, "The Beitang family is still the same as before. They are oppressive and do not care about right or wrong. They have never shown any signs of repentance. In the martial arts ceremony, who uses what weapon, where they come from, do the elders also have the right to ask about it? When did the Shunwu Academy have such unreasonable rules?" Elder Beitang held his breath and his face suddenly turned cold. He angrily rebuked, "Elder Lingshu, you are no longer the head of the Elders' Hall like before. You have no right to ask about the rules of the Shunwu Academy. In the Shunwu Academy, the Beitang family is the rule. What do the elders think?" Elder Beitang is right. The 4 elders stood up and clasped their hands together. Their expressions were as calm as an ancient well, and no one could tell what they were thinking. "How dare you?" Elder Lingshu was instantly furious. She raised her hand and waves of terrifying battle chi swept across the area. The degree of the terrifying oppression was so great that Beitang and the other 4 elders' faces turned pale. "Stop, stop, stop. It's just not allowing the use of the Black Dragon Blade. What's the big deal? Ben Shao can choose not to use it." Wang Kai suddenly interrupted and put away the Black Dragon Blade in front of everyone. Patter! Soon after, Wang Kai's figure also landed on the martial arts arena. His expression was indifferent as he laughed softly. "Haha, I'm afraid that even the air-stepping martial skill will be banned later, right? No problem, I will satisfy all of your unreasonable demands." Chapter 33. Young Master! Young Master Kai. Wang Yuan, Wang Lai, and Fatso Lu were all anxious when they saw that Wang Kai had put away the Black Dragon Blade and given up on using the air stride. How could he fight against the Netherworld sword without the Black Dragon Blade and the air stride? If he was careless and touched by the Netherworld sword, the death chi of the underworld would invade his body. "Wang Kai, are you sure you want to give up using the Black Dragon Blade?" Elder Lingshu asked in a deep voice. Wang Kai shrugged when he heard this. He waved his hand at Fatso Lu and the others and smiled indifferently. "Of course, I'm sure. This young master is proficient in both literature and martial arts. If martial arts is compared with literature, martial arts is weaker. However, it's enough to deal with this kind of shameless trash. Congratulations to the host for bragging successfully. You've gained 1,000 experience points and bragging points by 1 point. Good at both martial arts and literature? Better at both martial arts and literature? How come we didn't know about this?" The noble young masters from the monarch city all had looks of disdain on their faces. How could they not know that Wang Kai was bragging again? "Well, go all out and fight with him. No matter what the result is, I'll make sure you're safe and sound," Elder Lingshu said with deep meaning. Wang Kai was stunned when he heard this. He looked at Elder Lingshu with surprise. He understood what she meant and said with a playful smile, "Thank you, Elder." Arrogant. Other than Wang Kai's death, what else can happen? Even you can't dispel the death chi of the underworld. Elder Beitang sneered in his heart. Wanja's face was cold. He stroked the Netherworld sword and said with a sarcastic smile, "Wang Kai, you really don't know what's good for you. But you don't have the Black Dragon Blade, so you can't be compared with me. This is the best way for you to escape." "Can't be compared with you? Haha, you're just a first-grade martial general. How can you say such shameless words? Is it because of the Netherworld sword?" Wang Kai couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. Whoosh. It's pointless to say more. Prepare to die. Wanja's eyes shone with a sharp light. Immediately, he circulated his battle chi and covered his feet with it. As he moved, his figure flashed and disappeared from the stage like a phantom. His speed was so fast that it dazzled the spectating disciples. Die. Swoosh. Swoosh. Suddenly, hundreds of battle chi blades shot towards Wang Kai from all directions. Each of the battle chi blades carried wisps of death chi from the netherworld. They were all aimed at Wang Kai, who was standing still on the spot. Shame on you. Looks like Ben Shao needs to make you understand that the gap between the realms of martial arts is not something that can be made up for by external forces. Whoosh! Ding ding ding. Seeing that those sharp blades were about to hit Wang Kai's body, many of the spectating disciples held their breaths and stared at the place where he stood. When hundreds of sharp blades pierced through the white jade stone and the battle chi gradually disappeared, they were shocked to find that Wang Kai's figure had already disappeared without a trace. Ah, he's there. Oh my God, how can he be so fast? Senior brother Wan's speed is so fast that he can only see a phantom, but Wang Kai's speed is so fast that I can't even see a trace of him. Many of the spectating disciples cried out in surprise. They looked at Wang Kai, who was already at the other corner of the stage, and couldn't believe their eyes. Hee, now you should understand that the gap between the realms of martial arts is not something that can be made up for by a broken sword. Wang Kai smiled indifferently. With his hands behind his back and his clothes fluttering, he stood 50 meters away from his original position. Swoosh! Wanja's figure appeared, tightly holding the netherworld sword. His expression was cold and grim. After moving so quickly, he had consumed a lot of his battle chi. At this moment, his breathing was heavy. Wang Kai, you forced me to do this. You must die. Crack! Suddenly, a black pill appeared in Wanja's hand. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Wanja crushed the pill with his teeth and swallowed it into his stomach. In that instant, his battle chi was fully restored. The battle chi that he had just expended was completely restored, and the level of his battle chi was rising in a straight line. Damn! That's a breakthrough pill. Is senior brother Wan crazy? He actually took such a pill. A breakthrough pill. Once taken, it can temporarily raise the martial arts realm of the user by 1 grade. However, once the pill's effect is over, the user will drop by 1 grade. What? A breakthrough pill is so evil? Dropping by 1 grade? Doesn't that mean that senior brother Wan will drop to the martial master realm once the pill's effect is over? Is it worth it to pay such a huge price? There's no other way. Senior brother Wan has been forced into a dead end. I really didn't expect this Wang Kai to be so powerful. He's already a martial general at such a young age and has even surpassed a grade 1 martial general. Hearing the exclamations of the disciples, Wang Kai on the stage couldn't help curling his lip. He looked at Wanja with some disdain and shook his head disdainfully. I thought it was some kind of amazing pill, but isn't it just a grade increase? Even if you're a grade 2 martial general, what can you do? Pooh! As soon as he said this, Wanja, who was being tortured by the pill, was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face twisted as he gripped the netherworld sword tightly. He gritted his teeth and sneered, Wang Kai, you forced me to pay such a huge price. I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. Whoosh! When Wanja's battle chi stopped rising, the strength of his battle chi had reached that of a grade 2 martial general. I'd like to see how you're going to dodge now. Wanja's expression was extremely arrogant. He laughed arrogantly as he gripped the netherworld sword tightly. Battle chi covered his feet as he charged straight at Wang Kai. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows when he saw this. He suddenly turned around and faced the charging Wanja. He raised both his palms and calmly said, Dragon subduing 10 palms. Heavens, is he going to fight senior brother Wan head-on? Does he not want to live anymore? Even if they're at the same level, if he's not careful and gets stabbed by the netherworld sword, even if it's just a cut, he'll be corroded to death by the death energy of the underworld. Everyone widened their eyes and their nerves tensed up at this moment. Their eyes were red as they stared at the two people who were about to collide. Pa-pa-pa-pa. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In an instant, Wang Kai's palms danced as 10 azure battle chi palms flew out. He didn't hold back in the slightest. Wanja's originally charging figure hadn't even gotten close to Wang Kai when he was sent flying by the palms, spitting out blood. His netherworld sword was also sent flying into the air. Whoosh! Wang Kai's figure suddenly moved. With the support of his battle chi, his speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Wanja. He raised his hand and placed it on Wanja's mouth. Then, he slammed Wanja into the ground. Bang! Wah! Wanja looked like he was struck by lightning as he spat out blood onto Wang Kai's hand. His body twitched violently as he felt a buzzing in his head. His mind was in a mess as he half opened his eyes. When he saw Wang Kai's cold gaze, his heart was filled with endless fear. You're a grade 3 martial general. Chapter 34. I can't believe it, I really can't believe it. What realm is Wang Kai in? He actually managed to suppress Senior Brother Wan with a single move. Senior Brother Wan is now a second-grade martial general. No matter how strong Wang Kai is, he should have just broken through. How could he suddenly surpass the second grade? Didn't he say that he was only able to smoothly break through because of adversity? Could it be that he can continuously break through multiple grades? That's impossible. Wang Kai must have concealed his true realm. I have never heard of a martial artist who could continuously break through multiple grades. Many of the spectating disciples were shocked. They thought that Wang Kai, who had lost his black dragon blade, would definitely be defeated by Wanja. After all, the Netherworld Sword's ability was too strange. Who would have thought that the result would be so unbelievable? With just a single move, Wanja, who was a second-grade martial general, was sent flying. Even the Netherworld Sword was sent flying. This was definitely not caused by a powerful martial technique. It was definitely due to the suppression of the battle chi of the martial realm. The battle chi of both sides were not on the same level. Even though there was only a difference of 1 grade, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. Bastard! He actually reached the 3rd grade martial general realm. How did he break through? He should only be a 1st grade martial general. Even if he broke through because of my suppression, he should only be a 2nd grade martial general. How did he reach the 3rd grade? How did he do it? Elder Beitong's eyes were cold as he questioned himself in his heart. However, he still could not find a reasonable answer. As an elder of the Xunwu Academy and a martial ancestor realm expert, he was very knowledgeable about martial arts. What kind of martial artist had he not seen before? But now, even a junior in the general realm was unable to see through him. This made Elder Beitong extremely angry. However, the one who was the most panicked was Wanja. He was tightly held in Wang Kai's hand and had no strength to struggle. The continuous attacks he had just received had already caused his blood and qi to churn. He was severely injured and could not even circulate his battle qi. I admit, crack. Wang Kai's expression was calm and full of smiles. He abruptly tightened his grip on Wanja's mouth, crushing Wanja's cheekbones and digging his fingers into Wanja's mouth. He playfully looked at Wanja, who was mumbling incoherently, and laughed in a low voice. Shu, if you admit defeat, won't I be done for? Bang! Bang! Then, under Wanja's terrified gaze, Wang Kai lifted Wanja's body into the air. He clenched his fist and punched Wanja's chest violently. Every punch produced a muffled sound, causing everyone's hearts to beat wildly. Didn't you say that you wanted to break the engagement between the Marshal's residence and the Imperial Tutor's residence? Why aren't you awesome now? Bang! Bang! Didn't you say that I'm not qualified to fight with you? Why do you look like a dead dog now? Bang! Bang! Aren't you relying on the support of that old bastard? You used underhanded means to injure me and used your power to oppress me. Have you ever thought of the consequences? Bang! Bang! Under the torment of Wang Kai's 2 punches, Wanja's chest had caved in, and his ribs had pierced through his back. His body twitched, his eyes rolled back, and blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth like a stream. Everyone trembled when they saw this. How would they deal with such torture and humiliation if they were in Wanja's place? Where would their dignity go? Would they be able to survive? All kinds of unknown answers caused everyone to fall into a state of panic. There was no cheering or cheering, only fear and deep respect. Wang Kai is a person we can't afford to offend. If we dare to offend him, we must kill him in one blow. Elder Beitang, if we don't stop him, Wanja will definitely die. The matter with the sky-suppressing king will. A few elders frowned and reminded him. Hearing this, Elder Beitang suddenly came back to his senses. He had been shocked by Wang Kai's cultivation level. Now that he had come back to his senses, he looked at Wanja, who was still being tortured and humiliated, and became furious. He stood up and scolded, "Stop! Otherwise I will kill you on the spot!" Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Led by Elder Beitang, the other 4 elders moved and appeared in the arena in the blink of an eye. They wanted to approach Wang Kai, but they were shocked by a powerful aura and could not move at all. No one has admitted defeat, and no one has been kicked out of the arena. Why do you have to stop? Elder Lingshu said indifferently. His body was suspended in the air, and he looked down at the 5 elders like a king who ruled over everything. The 5 elders' faces were pale from the pressure. They knew Elder Lingshu's martial strength. When he was in charge of the Elder Hall, he was on equal footing with the palace master. Now that more than 50 years had passed, his martial strength must be even more unfathomable. Elder Lingshu Zhe is the crown prince of the sky-suppressing king. He cannot die in the academy. Elder Beitang gritted his teeth and said. Even though he was furious, he had to lower his voice under the suppression of absolute strength. Elder Lingshu, please stop Wang Kai. The crown prince of the sky-suppressing king cannot die. The other 4 elders pleaded in unison. Elder Lingshu frowned. What kind of deal did the Divine Martial Arts Academy have with the sky-suppressing king to make the 5 elders act like this? Lingshu. Suddenly, a voice rang in Elder Lingshu's ears. The other elders, including the 5 elders, did not hear it. Elder Lingshu's expression changed abruptly as she listened to the brief narration. Her eyes were filled with anger. Wang Kai let. Just as Elder Lingshu was about to stop him, Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and laughed softly. He's just a dead dog. I don't want to kill him. Bang! Wang Kai threw Wanja's body at Elder Beitang's feet like a piece of trash. Looking at the bloody man whose ribs were broken and whose back and chest were pierced, the 5 elders gasped. Bring him to the Elder Hall and let Elder Lingshu treat him. Elder Lingshu snorted. Swoosh. Elder Beitang waved his hand and swept Wanja up with his battle chi. As he stepped into the air, he stared coldly at Wang Kai and scolded, "If Wanja is powerless, no one will be able to protect you. Even if you are the only son of the Marshal's mansion, you will still be smashed into pieces. Alright, go treat that dead dog. Don't brag in front of me. I can't wait for you to save him so that I can teach him a lesson in the future," Wang Kai said with disdain. Elder Beitang held his breath and was about to explode in anger. However, he saw that Wanja's breathing was getting weaker. He could only glare at Wang Kai with his teeth clenched and left. "Humph, how dare you try to steal my woman? Look at yourself in the mirror. Even if God himself were here, he would still have to kneel down before Ben Shao." Wang Kai snorted and stood proudly with his hands behind his back. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Chapter 35. Stop. Hand over the Netherworld Sword. Wang Kai, who had just picked up the Netherworld Sword and was about to leave the stage, paused. He turned to look at the speaker and asked, May I know your surname? Dongfang. Elder Dongfang said. Buzz. Wang Kai's brows jumped up when he heard this. He flicked the netherworld sword with his finger and disdainfully said, Elder Beitang, as the owner of this sword, has never asked for it. What qualifications does Elder Dongfang have to ask me to leave the netherworld sword behind? How dare you? Elder Beitang did not have the time to take the netherworld sword because of his son's injury. You're just a junior. If you don't want the Beitang family to come after you, you'd better hand it over now. Elder Dongfang snorted. However, Wang Kai didn't pay any more attention to him. He held the netherworld sword and walked down the combat arena happily. Stop! Elder Lingshu became impatient and looked at him coldly. She frowned and snorted. According to the rules of the martial competition ceremony, the loser's belongings will be taken by the winner. Isn't this a rule set by the Beitang family and you? Elder Lingshu, why are you so protective of this boy? Even if you are not the head of the Elders' Hall, you should know how to differentiate between the inside and the outside. Elder Dongfang said in a deep voice, looking very unhappy. The other three elders were also staring at Elder Ling Shu with dissatisfaction. Even though their martial realms were not as high as his, it did not mean that there were no experts in the four big families who could keep him in check. As an elder of the Shenwu Academy, how could she allow herself to be rebuked in front of so many disciples? I am not protecting them. I am protecting the reputation of the Shenwu Academy, Elder Lingshu said coldly. The four elders were silent. Elder Lingshu was too upright and fair in everything. That was why she was removed from her position as the head of the Elders' Hall after the Beitang family took over the Shenwu Academy. They did not expect that after 50 years, Elder Lingshu was still Elder Lingshu and had not changed. The disciples who made it to the top 8 will be promoted to the ranks of the core disciples. Are there any disciples that you value? Elder Lingshu asked indifferently. Elder Dongfang huffed in annoyance. With a flick of his sleeves, he leapt into the air and approached Li Qingfeng. Are you willing to become my disciple? He asked flatly. This disciple is willing. Li Qingfeng was overjoyed. He didn't expect that even though he didn't enter the top 8, he would still be valued by an elder. He was so excited that he immediately knelt down and kowtowed on the spot. Are you willing to become my disciple? On the other hand, Su Ru was valued by Elder Shimen, Su Yi by Elder Nangong, and Qi Zhen by Elder Murong. The remaining 8 disciples were Ling Feng, Ken Ren, Lu Lu, and Beitang Tianlei. Elder Lingshu, there are only 7 of the top 8 disciples. Why don't you let me fight Li Qingfeng? Gao Song stood up, his face red. Even though Su Yi had taught him a lesson, he was still upset that Li Qingfeng, a disciple who didn't even make it to the top, was valued by an elder. Elder Lingshu was expressionless. She glanced at him and said, because Wang Kai has reached the rank of a general, he is disqualified from the battle. We are now one of the 8 disciples. I should have let you fight Li Qingfeng to determine the 8th disciple, but your injuries are too severe, and you can't fight anymore. However, seeing that you still have the will to fight, I have decided to make an exception and promote you to the top 8 disciples. Thank you, Elder. Gao Song quickly bowed, his eyes red with excitement. Although he wasn't valued by any of the elders, as long as he became a core disciple, he would have a high chance of cultivating a grand-level technique. At least he would no longer be a regular disciple. Wait, why not? Do you think the disciple I value would lose to him? Elder Dongfang huffed. How could he not know that this was Elder Lingshu's intention? She must have seen that he had made an exception to take Li Qingfeng as his disciple, so she took the opportunity to kick him out of the top 8, allowing Gao Song to make it to the top 8. If what Elder Lingshu said was true, why didn't she announce the battle between Li Qingfeng and Gao Song? Why did she only mention the top 8 after he had decided to take in a disciple? Could it be that Elder Lingshu knows something? That's impossible, only the elders of the 5 major clans know about this. Elder Dongfang's expression was uncertain as he thought to himself. Swoosh! Li Chengfeng's eyes flashed and he hurriedly stepped forward with a fist salute. Master Dongfang, I am willing to fight Gao Song. How dare you? You can make an exception to take in a disciple who didn't make it to the top 8, why can't I let Gao Song make it to the top? Has the Dongfang clan learned how to be arrogant like the Beitongs? Since you have accepted a disciple, you may all leave now. Elder Lingshu scolded. As the 4 elders left with their disciples with ashen faces, the disciples who were watching the battle could not help but sigh with regret. Li Qingfeng, who didn't make it to the top 8, was valued by the elders. On the other hand, those who made it to the top 8, like Lu Lu, were ignored. What was even more unacceptable to the disciples present was Wang Kai. Although he had been disqualified, his martial arts realm and age were still there for all to see. It could be said that none of the participating disciples could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Unfortunately, no one was interested in it. Young Master Kai, it's such a pity that geniuses like us don't have an elder who can recognize a hero. Below the stage, Fatso Lu rubbed his big belly and lay on his back in his seat, sighing dejectedly again and again. Wang Kai raised an eyebrow and looked at him in surprise. He didn't expect this guy to really want to join the 5 major clans. But then again, even if the Lu clan was the leader of the 4 major clans, they only had the first half of the Grandmaster level martial arts manual. If they cultivated, they would only be a grade 9 martial general. I'm probably the one who got him into trouble? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and thought. Li Qingfeng, Su Ru, and Su Yi were all valued by the elders, but Fatso Lu, who was the leader of the 4 major clans, was not valued. Elder Lingshu floated in the air expressionlessly and suddenly said, Wang Kai, Lu Lu, Lung Feng, Canren, are you willing to become my disciples? Whoosh! As soon as she said this, Wang Kai and the others were stunned. They looked at Elder Lingshu in surprise. They did not expect that the elder, who lived in seclusion in the academy, would take the initiative to accept a disciple. Haha, Elder Lingshu, you have a good eye. Greetings, Master. Fatso Lu suddenly became energetic and stared at Elder Lingshu with shining eyes. He immediately got up and bowed with a smile. The dark clouds in his heart dissipated and were replaced by infinite joy. Compared to the other 5 grand elders, Elder Lingshu was the most awesome. Chapter 36. Bald Donkey. If you really want to fight, then put away your master-level weapon. Let's practice our martial arts. Do you dare? Fatso Lu shouted with an arrogant look on his face. Canren licked his lips when he heard this. He suddenly stabbed his broken black sword into the ground and rolled up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arms. He rubbed his bald head and grinned, Damn fatty. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Young Master Kai, you've really played me to death this time. Fatso Lu shuddered all over. He stared straight at Broken Blade's arm, then lowered his head to look at his own. Although they were not thinner than Broken Blade's were genuine muscles. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and felt extremely depressed in his heart. Your physical fitness is not bad, but it's still far from Bensheo's. However, it's enough to deal with Fatso Lu. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled indifferently. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 1,000 experience points and bragging points by 1 point. Ah, young Master Kai, what are you doing? This is a duel between me and the bald donkey. Don't interfere. Suddenly, Fatso Lu's eyes turned. He lifted the large lattice and directly charged towards Canren. However, his gaze was tightly fixed on Wang Kai, who was behind him. This scene caused Canren's heart to be startled. Seemingly out of habit, he turned around. Damn you, damn bald donkey! Bang! Fatso Lu was overjoyed when he saw this. He cursed loudly and arrived in front of Canren. He jumped up and raised his fat palm and slapped down on Canron's bald head. Canron's shiny bald head turned red from the slap. Damn fatty! It was too late for Canron to react. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head, and his body was swaying from the slap. Before he could retaliate, he was pressed under Fatty Lou's body and violently beaten. Ha! You're a 9th grade martial master. I'm also a 9th grade martial master. Are you still so awesome this time? Fatso Lou laughed heartily. He waved his palm and slapped the bald head that was covered with broken blades. In just a few slaps, the bald head was already swollen and red. The corner of Wang Kai's mouth twitched as he watched from the side. He had to admit that this Fatso Lou really knew how to play. However, that savage blade was too practical. Even a child's trick could fool him. Even if Savage Blade was stronger than Fatso Lou in the same realm, it would be a completely different story after the successful sneak attack. This Ling Feng is amazing. On the battle stage, Ling Feng held his longsword and did not make any moves. His body was like a phantom as he dodged left and right. No matter how hard Beiteng Tianlei tried to stab him with his longsword, he could not hurt him at all. Yes, Ling Feng has already cultivated his movement technique, phantom steps, to the peak of perfection. Elder Lingshu praised. Such a talented person was actually suppressed by the Beiteng family. If he was nurtured properly, he would definitely become one of the elders in the Elder Hall. Hearing this, Wang Kai was startled. He stared at Ling Feng with burning eyes, secretly comparing him to his own air steps. One could step on air, while the other could not, but his speed was like a phantom. His ability to dodge attacks was exquisite, making it impossible for the enemy to reach him. Wang Kai could not help but squint his eyes and ask with a smile, "Phantom steps? Is it a martial technique from Shenwu Academy?" That's right. The master rank phantom steps can be cultivated by any ordinary disciple. However, only a few can reach his level. Elder Lingshu said with a smile as she stroked her beard. Hearing this, Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and lazily sat back in his chair. He crossed his legs and said with an indifferent smile, "It's passable. Even if this young master doesn't use air steps, I can still easily beat this phantom step." Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and bragging points. The corners of Elder Lingshu's mouth twitched violently, and she glared at him. After the martial arts ceremony, she had more or less figured out Wang Kai's habit. Thinking of how the young masters of Monarch City addressed him, she shook her head and ignored him. Trash. Do you only know how to dodge? Beiteng Tianlei scolded angrily. He panted as he held his spear and took a few steps back. He stared coldly at Ling Feng. After hundreds of attacks, he had failed to hit Ling Feng even once. This was undoubtedly the greatest humiliation. The phantom steps was a skill that everyone in the Shenwu Academy could practice. Beiteng Tianlei had also practiced it before. However, he was unable to keep up with Ling Feng's speed. Ling Feng's eyes flashed with disdain and he said coldly, "I'm not dodging. Come at me." Idiot. Beiteng Tianlei looked at Yi Shiwen with disdain. He did not expect that Yi Shiwen would really give up on using his movement skill. Beiteng Tianlei despised Yi Shiwen even more. A brainless person like Yi Shiwen deserved to be stuck at the martial master realm for so many years. Heavenly Fire Spear. Immediately, Beiteng Tianlei shouted as he leaped into the sky. He held the long spear with both hands and swung it down. Layers of green battle chi flowed through the body of the spear and turned into a flaming spear. He aimed it at Ling Feng's head. Oh no! Advanced Master Realm Martial Skill, Heavenly Fire Spear. Elder Lingshu's face changed and she frowned as she stared at Ling Feng. A battle chi gathered in her palm and she was ready to save Ling Feng at any time. 7 Ultimate Swords, Sword 1 Calamity Sword. Ling Feng's face was still cold and he did not show any change. He looked up at the flaming spear and raised his sword. He jumped up into the air to meet the attack. Swoosh! Clang! The long sword and the flaming spear met in the air, and there was an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing. The flames exploded and turned into a rain of fire. Ling Feng and Beiteng Tianlei passed each other and both of them landed in the fighting ring. The winner has been decided. Elder Lingshu squinted her eyes and said with a smile. The battle chi in her palm disappeared. Is it a draw? No, why did Ling Feng leave the fighting ring? Did he admit defeat? Ah! Senior brother Beiteng's arm. Beiteng Tianlei's arm, which was holding the spear, flew up into the air and blood splattered on the ground. He was thrown out of the fighting ring along with the spear. Bang! Beiteng Tianlei's eyes dimmed and his body twitched violently before he fell to the ground. Ling Feng won. One move. He defeated Beiteng Tianlei in one move and cut off his arm. What kind of sword skill was that? I have been in the Shunwu Academy for so many years. Why have I never seen such a sword principal martial skill? Even the advanced Master Realm martial skill, Heavenly Fire Spear, was defeated. That is a martial skill that the Beiteng family does not teach to outsiders. Everyone was shocked as they looked at Beiteng Tianlei, who was lying on the ground in disbelief. No one knew if he was dead or alive. This year's martial competition ceremony is over, Elder Lingshu said calmly. Chapter 37. Spiritual Pivot Courtyard. Wang Kai followed Elder Ling Shu into the courtyard. Wang Yuan and Wang Lai, as well as the two guards brought by Fatso Lu, stood guard at the entrance of the courtyard at Elder Ling Shu's request. That little girl didn't even say a word when she left. This young master is so mighty and domineering today, but she didn't even take the initiative to give me a kiss. She really doesn't understand the mood. Wang Kai's face was full of resentment as he pouted and complained. Until the end of the ceremony, Lu Yao was still nowhere to be seen. He thought that she would fall in love with him after seeing his extraordinary power. After all, there were too few outstanding young men like him. However, now that he had returned to the spiritual pivot courtyard, he still didn't see her. The corners of Kenren's and Fatty Lu's mouths twitched violently when they heard this. They looked at each other as if they had a tacit understanding. However, the moment they looked at each other, a fiery glow flickered in their eyes. It seemed as though they were about to fight again. Kenren's bald head was red and swollen, but Fatso Lu's eyes were also bruised. The two of them fought fiercely, and in the end it turned into a fight between gangsters. They threw punches and kicks at each other, and in the end, neither of them got the upper hand. The Marshal's mansion already has a complete set of zone-level cultivation methods, and you have also reached the Marshal General realm. If you haven't reached the peak of the zone level, you can't change to other cultivation method. This is the principle of martial art. Do you understand? Elder Ling Shu asked lightly. Wang Kai shrugged when he heard this. He thought to himself that he didn't rely on the zone-level cultivation methods of the Marshal's mansion to break through to the Marshal General realm. However, he couldn't explain this to them, so he could only nod and say, "I understand." Although Wang Kai didn't practice the Marshal's mansion's cultivation methods, he still had some understanding of martial arts in his memory. Once a cultivator started to practice a certain martial technique, they would not be able to switch to other martial techniques until they reached the peak of that martial technique. For example, a martial technique could only be practiced to the peak of the Martial Master realm. Only after reaching the 9th grade Martial Master realm could one practice the higher Martial Ancestor realm martial techniques and use them to break through to the Martial General realm and begin a higher level of cultivation. A master-level cultivation technique could allow a martial artist to cultivate to the martial disciple and martial master levels. A zone-level cultivation technique could allow a martial master to break through to the martial general level and cultivate to the peak of the martial ancestor level. If that's the case, I won't impart the cultivation method to you. If you have any questions about the cultivation method of the Marshal's mansion, you can come and ask me at any time, Elder Lingshu said calmly. Upon hearing this, Wang Kai nodded his head gently. He didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this. If an outsider wanted to guide him in his cultivation, they would have to know the complete zone-level cultivation technique. How could the complete zone-level cultivation technique of the Marshal's mansion be easily revealed to outsiders? Even if Wang Kai believed in Elder Lingshu's character, he wouldn't dare to show the Marshal's mansion's cultivation technique to him. After all, the Marshal's mansion was able to stand tall in the Xunwu dynasty because of this complete zone-level cultivation technique. Furthermore, Wang Kai didn't even know about the zone-level cultivation technique of the Marshal's mansion. Lingshu smiled satisfactorily and turned to look at Ling Feng, Kenren, and Lulu. She smiled faintly and said, I can impart the first half of the zone-level cultivation technique to the three of you. As for the second half, it will have to follow the rules of the Xunwu Academy. What rules? Fatso Lu was stunned and puzzled. He looked at Ling Feng and Kenren, who were nodding their heads solemnly. He was completely dumbfounded. Haha, you've just arrived at the Xunwu Academy. It's normal that you don't know the rules. Becoming a core disciple doesn't mean that you can cultivate the zone-level cultivation technique. You have to be in the top 10 core disciples before you can cultivate the first half of the zone-level cultivation technique. Of course, if you're valued by an elder and become a disciple, you can cultivate the first half of the zone-level cultivation technique. Elder Lingshu smiled faintly. Kenren licked his lips and rubbed his bald head vigorously. He grinned and said, Now that we're under Master Lingshu's tutelage, we can cultivate the first half of the zone-level cultivation technique. However, if we want to cultivate the second half of the zone-level cultivation technique, we have to pass through the 9 levels of the Tower of Babel. 9 levels of the Tower of Babel? Damn, no wonder so many disciples who successfully entered the Xunwu Academy couldn't break through to the zone-level cultivation technique. Fatso Lu's face trembled, and he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had heard of the Tong Tian Tower before. The Xunwu Academy had been established in the Xunwu dynasty for more than 50 years and held a recruitment ceremony once every 10 years. Up until now, there had been 5 sessions, and the number of disciples they had accepted were geniuses from the royal city and even the entire Xunwu dynasty. Those who could become martial grandmasters could be counted on one hand. From this, one could see how powerful the 9 levels of the Tower of Babel was. Wang Kai squinted his eyes and listened quietly. He had come to the Xunwu Academy for the 9 levels of the Tower of Babel. It didn't matter if it was difficult or not. What was important was that he had to try it. He had to activate his bloodline power. Okay, you can all rest tonight. Tomorrow, I'll teach each of you a zone-level cultivation technique. Elder Lingshu smiled faintly and walked back to her room with her hands behind her back. Ling Feng and Kenren looked at each other and bowed to Elder Lingshu. Then, they each chose a room to rest in. Damn it. Looks like my plan to strengthen the Lu family has failed. Fatso Lu shook his head and sighed. His expression was gloomy. Wang Kai's eyes lit up when he heard this. He walked up and patted Fatso Lu's shoulder. He smiled and said, Isn't it easy to strengthen the Lu family? If you are willing to listen to Ben Shao, you can definitely make the Lu family stronger. It can even be comparable to the Xunwu Academy. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Young Master Kai, there are no outsiders here. Can you stop bragging? Fatso Lu's eyes were filled with resentment. Wang Kai's face darkened. He stared at Fatso Lu and said, Don't forget about Master Jichen. Ben Shao will tell you secretly that his ability is not something the warriors of the Fan State can compare to. Young Master Kai, I'm a little tired. See you tomorrow. Fatso Lu's entire body trembled. He was so scared that his face turned deathly pale. He instantly understood Wang Kai's meaning and immediately ran into a room without thinking. Wang Kai's face stiffened when he saw this. He helplessly shook his head and looked up at the bright moon. He sighed and said, "Looks like there is still a long way to go before this damn Fatso becomes a monk." Pata. Ding dang. Wang Kai took out the bulging banknotes from his chest and placed them on the ground along with the netherworld sword and black dragon blade. He was speechless when he saw these items. He couldn't just carry them everywhere he went, right? Wang Yuan, come here. Wang Kai smacked his lips. He could not help but think of the space ring that he had snatched from Beiteng Zhantian. His eyes suddenly lit up and he hurriedly waved his hand at Wang Yuan, who was guarding the door. "Young master," Wang Yuan respectfully said. After this martial battle ceremony, his respect for his young master's awesomeness had reached its peak. Especially when he looked at the netherworld sword on the ground, his heart began to burn with passion. Wang Kai took off the space ring and played with it a few times. He awkwardly asked, "How do I use this?" Wang Yuan was stunned when he heard this. He asked in disbelief, "Young master, you really don't know?" "Nonsense, if I knew, why would I ask you? Hurry up and teach me." Wang Kai rolled his eyes and snorted. "If you don't know, why did you snatch it? You definitely did it to show off." Wang Yuan knew his young master's nature. He could only secretly sigh and teach him step by step. Although he was a guard and did not have a space ring, he had still heard of it. Chapter 38. Bang! Bang! In the courtyard of the spiritual pivot, Ling Feng and Can Ren were both thrown out. Their long sword and broken saber fell beside them. Their faces were purple and blood stained the corners of their mouth. Their clothes were tattered and they lay on the ground weakly. Their expressions were ugly. Early in the morning, they had received Master Ling Shu's Zong-level cultivation skill and had easily broken through to the martial general realm. The first cultivation method that Master Ling Shu had given them was to duel with Wang Kai and train them in the martial general realm. He had originally thought that even though his cultivation level was 2 levels lower than Wang Kai's, the two of them would still be able to exchange a few hundred blows with him if they worked together. However, the result was not so. In just a single exchange, he was forcefully sent flying backwards. "Sigh, what is Master Lingshu thinking? How could she let you fight with me? Don't you know that I am the strongest youth in Fanzhou?" Yi Zichen sighed. "What is she thinking? How could she let you fight with me? Don't she know that I am the strongest youth in Fan Province?" Wang Kai shook his head and sighed. He put his hands behind his back and looked lonely. He looked like he was invincible in the world. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and bragging points. Puff, puff. These words immediately caused Ling Feng and Can Ren to grit their teeth in anger. Immediately, they spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. With great effort, they flipped their bodies and laid on the ground with their backs facing the sky. They looked at the sky and secretly felt disdain. "Eldest senior brother, cough cough, I will not attack you." Fatso Lu was nervous, especially when he saw the miserable state that Ling Feng and Can Ren were in. His heart was beating like a drum. When he saw Wang Kai looking at him, he was so scared that he threw the 2 sabers on the ground. The cultivation method that Master Ling Shu had arranged was not just for Ling Feng and Can Ren to attack Wang Kai together. Fatso Lu was included. However, from the beginning of the fight, before he could help, Ling Feng and Can Ren were beaten to the ground. How could he dare to go up? "Damn Fatso, you deserve to be the youngest." Can Ren licked his lips and said disdainfully. "That's right." Ling Feng agreed coldly. Fatso Lu's eyes widened when he heard that. He was a little unconvinced. Even if Master Lingshu said that they would judge who was the eldest senior brother and second senior brother based on strength, It was natural for young Master Kai to be the eldest senior brother. After all, the bragging alliance still needed young Master Kai's help. However, he was still suppressed by Ling Feng and Kanren. Miss Lu? Fatso Lu's eyes turned and he stretched his neck to look at the entrance of the courtyard. Little girl, you're here? Wang Kai was startled when he heard this. Then, he turned his head with joy in his eyes. Kanren felt a sense of déjà vu when he saw this scene. Both he and Ling Feng widened their eyes and looked over. Hee, let me be the eldest senior brother. Fatso Lu laughed out loud. He suddenly jumped up, raised his fat palm, and slammed it down on Wang Kai's head. After-image fist. Swoosh. Swoosh. Bang. Wang Kai's head was directly hit by Fatso Lu. He thought that he had won, but he realized that Wang Kai's figure had disappeared. Beside him, there were 3 figures of Wang Kai that looked exactly the same as the real person. What's going on? Fatso Lu was dumbfounded. After-image. An illusion. Ling Feng said coldly. After Kanren recovered from his shock, a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He licked his lips and looked at the dumbfounded Fatso Lu. He laughed evilly and said, "Damn Fatso, you're probably done for. Benchao's martial arts talent is the best in the world. His intelligence is incomparable. The person who can deceive Benchao has not been born yet. It's just a child's trick. You can only fool an idiot." Wang Kai smiled calmly. The 3 figures spoke at the same time. Their expressions and actions were exactly the same. Their voices were extremely synchronized. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Plop. Fatso Lu's entire body trembled. He was so scared that he fell to the ground. His fat body trembled non-stop. He said in a trembling voice, "Young Master Kai, oh no, eldest senior brother, it was a misunderstanding. It really was a misunderstanding. Don't come over." Crack. Crack. After that, under Wang Kai's merciless torture, the bones and tendons in Fatty Lu's entire body were beaten to the point they emitted cracking sounds. He repeatedly howled miserably as he lay prone on the ground, and he was in an extremely miserable state compared to Ling Feng and Kanren. Sigh, they're just 3 beginners who have just broken through to the martial general realm. They actually want to fight against someone as awesome as Benchao. They really don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is. Does someone who can stand shoulder to shoulder with Benchao exist in this world? Answer, there's no such person. Wang Kai shook his head and answered his own question. His expression was calm and indifferent. He seemed a little lonely at the top. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the 4th grade martial general realm. When it comes to bragging, there's no one who can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. The corner of Kanren's mouth twitched as he looked at Wang Kai's arrogant face. He couldn't help but say this. That's right. Ling Feng nodded in agreement. Benefactors, you've understood. Fatso Lu cried out sadly. He lay on the ground and didn't want to move. Even the slightest movement would cause his body to ache. Where's the trash, Wang Kai? Quickly come out and accept your death. Following a disdainful shout, Wang Kai's good mood from breaking through to the 4th grade martial king realm was immediately shattered. His face darkened and he shouted, "Which bastard is making a ruckus outside? Impudent! The 5 of you are the strongest direct descendants of the 5 generations of the 5 great clans. If you don't want your limbs to be crippled, you'd better come out and beg for mercy." Li Qingfeng? Wang Kai's expression froze. He wasn't familiar with the person who had just spoken, but the second voice was extremely familiar. It was definitely the young master of the Li clan, Li Qingfeng. The 5 strongest direct descendants of the 5 generations of the 5 great clans? He's just a first-grade marshal general. Senior brother, why don't you let us take this job? It's too disadvantageous to fight with you. Let us spar with them. Canren licked his lips and stood up with a sinister smile. Ling Feng also stood up and held his long sword in his hand. He nodded and said coldly, "Excellent. First-grade marshal general? Forget it, I'll leave it to you guys. Oh right, don't forget to capture that Li Qingfeng for me." Wang Kai shrugged and said carelessly, "A mere first-grade marshal general was indeed not that interesting." Whoosh 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 whoosh. However, before Ling Feng and Canren could go out to fight, 6 figures appeared in the courtyard. Li Qingfeng was among them. Of the other 5, 4 were males and 1 was a female. They were all around 20 years old, and among them, there were 2 familiar faces. Wang Kai's mouth twitched when he saw this, and he said with a playful smile, "I was wondering who it was. So it's Beiteng Zhantian." Chapter 39. It's you. Beiteng Zhantian's eyes suddenly widened, and his face instantly became extremely ashen. If he hadn't met Wang Kai last time, he wouldn't have ended up in such a state where he had to flee back to the academy naked. Not only that, but the most hateful thing was that after that incident, although his marriage with Murong Wanqing hadn't been cancelled, the relationship between the Beiteng family and the Murong family had become somewhat awkward and stiff. What was worse was that he had stolen the space ring. If any of the items inside were exposed, then the Beiteng family's reputation would be tarnished and the Shunwu Academy would be ridiculed. Beiteng Zhantian was furious, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Of course, he couldn't make it public. However, if the elders found out that even the space ring had been stolen, then his status would instantly disappear. He would no longer be the 5th-generation direct descendant that the Beiteng family had spent all their efforts to nurture. "Why are you in the Shunwu Academy?" Murong Wanqing's expression froze, and her beautiful face was similarly unsightly. Although she didn't have such intense hatred towards Wang Kai, but after experiencing his numerous frivolous words and actions, his hateful appearance would constantly appear within her mind during these past 2 days, and it was simply like a nightmare. The other 3 direct descendants who had come with him were surprised. They were curious about who this young man was. He looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. Why was he related to both Beiteng Zhantian and Murong Wanqing? Moreover, this relationship didn't look simple. Could it be that this young man was really that powerful? That he was able to make both of them suffer at his hands? Ben Shao has an imposing appearance and an elegant demeanor. His martial talent is even more extraordinary. Countless geniuses have to admit that they are inferior to him. Where in the Fan province can't he go? What's so surprising about him appearing in the Shunwu Academy? Or rather, with Ben Shao's presence, the Shunwu Academy's level will also rise. Wang Kai smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused the veins on Beiteng Zhantian's forehead to bulge. Murong Wanqing's beautiful face was livid as she tightly clenched her teeth. The minds of the other 3 strongest direct descendants were completely blank as they stared dumbstruck at Wang Kai. His previous conjecture disappeared in an instant. Beiteng Zhantian and Murong Wanqing must have been angered to such an extent by this guy, right? Who are you? Tell me your name. Beiteng Zhantian's expression was icy as he stared at Wang Kai. He did not dare to push him too far. If he infuriated him and spread the news of what happened that day, wouldn't he lose all his face? Murong Wanqing's beautiful face suddenly changed. She blinked her beautiful eyes and suddenly covered her mouth as she chuckled. "That's right, I'm also very curious about who you are." He actually dared to teach Beiteng Zhantian a lesson, ha ha ha. "Shut up. Don't forget your current status." Beiteng Zhantian angrily rebuked as he stared at her with a red face. Murong Wanqing's face stiffened as a cold light appeared in her eyes. She was extremely angry in her heart. Last time, she was saved by Wang Kai. When she returned to the academy, she told the elders of her family that Beiteng Zhantian wanted to humiliate her. However, she still could not cancel the engagement with the Beiteng family as she wished. This was all because the Beiteng family was in charge of the Shunwu Academy. Hey, we didn't come to the spiritual pivot courtyard to listen to you two quarrel. Hurry up, shut up. Sissy Shimen. Murong Wanqing scolded. The person who spoke was a young man of about 20 years old. He was quite handsome, but when he opened his mouth, he let out a shrill and ear-piercing voice. Especially when he shyly covered his chest with his hands as if he was frightened, it made the others tremble. Murong Wanqing, you and I are sisters. Why are you so fierce to me? I won't treat you well in the future. Shimen Lang grumbled bitterly. He pinched his orchid fingers together as if he was using force. Enough. Stop quarreling. Shimen Lang is right. We came to the spiritual pivot courtyard to retrieve the netherworld sword. Dongfang Tu coldly snorted with a serious expression. Nangong Qingyun nodded in agreement. She had a gentle temperament and a graceful demeanor. She asked with a smile, I wonder which one of you is Wang Kai? If you hand over the netherworld sword, I can make the decision to let you live. How about it? He is Wang Kai. Tringfeng raised his arm and pointed in the distance with a smug and cold smile. Whoosh! Beiteng Zhantian and the others all looked in the direction of the finger. They found that the Wang Kai they were looking for was actually this very boastful young man. You are Wang Kai. Beiteng Zhantian's eyes bulged. He suddenly felt that things were a little difficult. It was as if he had accumulated a lot of anger and found the right target, but he couldn't vent it. Wang Kai's face had already darkened and black lines appeared on his forehead. He waved his hand in annoyance and said with disgust, a boastful idiot, an ungrateful little girl, and a sissy. Finally, a hypocrite. Ben Shao really doesn't want to know what weird fetishes the rest of you, Dongfang too. Get out of here. It hurts my eyes. Damn it. Are all the direct disciples of the Shunwu Academy so weird? How dare you? Don't talk nonsense. How am I ungrateful? I, a young man, you are so handsome. How can you insult your elder sister like that? The three retorts made Wang Kai feel even more disgusted. He quickly took a few steps back and waved his hand. Ling Feng, Can Ren, I'll leave them to you too. Haha, Wang Kai, the only son of the marshal's mansion for 9 generations, has never practiced martial arts or literature since he was young. A few days ago, he showed off his strength at the White Jade Tower, crushing the direct disciples of the 4 major clans in terms of martial arts. He also defeated the Crown Prince Wan Kong, who was both versed in literature and martial arts. Now that he has come to the Shunwu Academy, he even defeated the Crown Prince of the Sky Suppressing King. Although he has been disqualified from the ceremony, he still deserves to be number 1. To have such achievements at such a young age, I'm really curious, how did young Master Kai do it? Nangong Qingyun asked with a gentle smile. As soon as he said this, the rest of the people were stunned. They looked at Wang Kai in disbelief. They did not expect him to have such achievements. Among those people, the Crown Prince Wan Kong was a true genius. He was so strong that only the strongest direct disciples of the 4th generation could compete with him. The 3rd generation above him were the elders of the Shunwu Academy. It was also rumored that Wan Kong would enter the martial ancestor realm in the near future. When that time comes, he would be able to compete with the 3rd generation elders of the Shunwu Academy. Even so, he was defeated by this young man? Even if he defeated Wan Kong with the Wen Dao, everyone felt that it was impossible. After all, Wan Kong's martial Dao and Wen Dao were on par. CK your grandpa. You have already bragged about me. What else can I brag about? Lung Feng, Kenren, give them a good beating. Wang Kai shouted with a black face. Fatso Lu, who was lying on the ground in the distance, was a little depressed when he heard this. He muttered, "Why do they only talk about young Master Kai's glorious achievements but not his bragging skills? Is there a mistake in their information? If we're talking about bragging, I can also be on the stage. These bastards really don't know how to do things." Chapter 40. Hee, while you were flaunting your prowess and flaunting your family's heritage, Ben Shao was diligently cultivating day and night. While you were using your power to coerce innocent women, Ben Shao was still cultivating. While you were having fun with women, Ben Shao was still cultivating. Adding on Ben Shao's exceptional talent, do you think he needs a reason to break through to the first-grade realm? Wang Kai smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Dongfang too was startled when he heard this. A look of admiration flashed in his eyes, but he immediately reacted and scolded coldly, "Don't talk nonsense. Although I am a direct descendant of the Dongfang family, I don't lose to you in terms of hard work in martial arts. Furthermore, I have never bullied anyone." Then tell me, why is it that although I am younger than you, my martial cultivation is stronger than yours? Young man, although hard work is important, talent is also indispensable. Wang Kai smiled indifferently with his hands behind his back. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Bang! Dongfang Tu's face darkened when he heard this. His heart was filled with unwillingness. He clenched his fists tightly, took a step forward, and turned around to leave. He coldly said, "Since I am not as good as you now, I will let today's matter rest for now. However, in the future, I will definitely fight you." I'm convinced young Lord Kai's bragging skills are truly superb. Even a third-grade martial general was blown away by him. Defeating an enemy without a fight, is this it? Fatso Lu lay on the ground and looked at Wang Kai with a face full of admiration. The difference of 1 grade in martial cultivation was the difference between heaven and earth. Even if they were to fight, it would definitely end in a crushing defeat. As the strongest 5th-generation descendant of the Dongfang family, even if Dongfang too was unwilling, he was not willing to throw an egg against a rock and seek his own humiliation. He came and left without any hesitation. "Damn Fatso! Hurry up and get rid of this sissy for me," Wang Kai scolded with a dark face. Whenever he saw Shimin Longlong's sissy appearance, he would feel goosebumps all over his body. Whoosh! Fatso Lu immediately became spirited when he heard this. He suddenly stood up and patted his big belly. He proudly snorted, "Sissy Shimin, my martial cultivation is much higher than yours. If you don't want to be beaten, then get out of the courtyard of the spiritual pivot yourself." After witnessing Wang Kai blowing Dongfang Tu away, Fatso Lu naturally did not want to be outdone. However, he did not see any reaction from Shimin Langlang. Shimin Langlang did not respond to him at all. "Little brother Wang Kai, your martial cultivation is very high. Elder sister is no match for you. However, elder sister wants to give you a piece of advice. If you don't want the 4th-generation disciples to come, you'd better hand over the Netherworld sword. As your elder sister, I can plead for you in the Beitang family." Shimin Langlang smiled softly. This time, he came to ask for the Netherworld sword. It was not as simple as it seemed. Now that the strongest Dongfang Tu had retreated, if he could successfully take back the Netherworld sword and hand it to the elders of his family, who would then exchange it with the Beitang family elders, then he would be richly rewarded and his cultivation would definitely break through again. Wang Kai's face was terrifyingly dark. Black lines appeared on his forehead. Being called elder sister again and again, he felt extremely disgusted. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, "You. Get. Out." "Little brother," bang! Wang Kai's figure suddenly disappeared, which directly caused Shimin Lang Lang to close his mouth tightly. He hurriedly raised his hands to block, but he still felt a huge force attacking his body. His body was immediately hit and flipped over in the air. "Damn it! I was just bragging. You actually dared to ignore me?" Fatso Lu's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. After Wang Kai sent Shimin Lang Lang flying, he quickly jumped up and directly pressed down on Shimin Long Long's body. He raised his big palm and slapped down. "Pa! Pa pa pa!" Wang Kai retreated with an ugly expression. Looking at Shimin Lang Lang, who was being ruthlessly beaten up by Fatso Lu, there was an indescribable joy in his heart. He spat and said disdainfully, "It's fine if you're a sissy, but even the strongest Dongfang too has run away. You actually dare to stay and show off. Beat him up for me. Beat him up so hard that even his father won't recognize him." Even though Shimin Lang Lang was a second-grade martial general, under Wang Kai's 2 heavy blows, he still lost the ability to resist. Moreover, Fatso Lu was also a martial general. It was easy for him to deal with Shimin Lang Lang, who was unable to circulate his battle chi. Bang! Bang! Beiteng Zhantian and Murong Wanqing were repeatedly beaten back by Ling Feng and Song Ren. Only when they started fighting did they realize how terrifying these two brothers were. Even though they had broken through to the martial general realm before them, they still could not gain the slightest advantage. "Nangong Qingyun, you're actually watching from the sidelines? Why aren't you making a move?" Beiteng Zhantian angrily rebuked. Nangong Qingyun had a playful expression when he heard this. He smiled gently and said, "Dongfang too has already left. The Netherworld sword cannot be retrieved. Since that's the case, why bother? Everyone, please continue. Qingyun will take his leave for now." "Dongfang too has already left?" Beiteng Zhantian was startled. He had been so busy dealing with Ling Feng that he did not notice. At this moment, when he was looking at Wang Kai, other than Shimin Lang Lang who was being beaten up by Fatso Lu, where was Dongfang Tu's figure? You should stay here and slowly fight. It's best if you die here." Murong Wanqing sneered and glanced at him with a gaze full of ridicule. Then, she withdrew with an extremely carefree expression on her pretty face. Songren licked his lips and did not stop Murong Wanqing from leaving. He knew that even if he kept her here, the outcome would not be decided in a short time. It was better to stay with Ling Feng and kill Beiteng Zhantian of the Beiteng family. Compared to the Murong family, Songren and Ling Feng hated the Beiteng family more. "Big brother, he just said that he wanted to cut off your limbs. How about we take his life?" Songren laughed sinisterly. He forcefully wiped his bald head, causing the veins on his forehead to bulge. He would never let anyone from the Beiteng family go so easily. "Cut off his limbs," Ling Feng coldly said. Song Ren's face was instantly filled with excitement. Compared to killing the opponent, it was better to cripple the opponent. He immediately licked his lips and laughed sinisterly. "I'll listen to Big Brother. Arrogant. Even if I can't defeat the two of you, it's undoubtedly a fool's dream if you want to keep me here," Beiteng Zhantian said with disdain. Swoosh. Suddenly, Wang Kai's figure appeared at the entrance of the courtyard. He waved his hand casually and hit Li Qingfeng, who was trying to sneak away, causing him to spit out blood and fly back to where he came from. "You came here to show off in front of Ben Shao and now you want to leave in one piece? Do you think it's that easy to show off?" Wang Kai laughed disdainfully. Bang! What? Qingfeng fell next to Beiteng Zhantian and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale as he clutched his chest. There was an indescribable panic on his face. How could he, who was only a martial master, withstand an attack from Wang Kai, who was a martial general? Even if it was just a casual attack, it was enough to beat him to the point where he could not get up. Please bookmark me. Chapter 41. What are you going to do? Beiteng Zhantian's expression darkened as the arm holding the long sword trembled slightly. He was confident that he could leave the spiritual pivot courtyard safely with Ling Feng and Can Ren, but the outcome would be completely different if he were to face Wang Kai. The difference of a single grade was like the difference between heaven and earth. How could he possibly escape with a difference of 3 grades? Wang Kai shrugged when he heard this. With his hands clasped behind his back, he smiled indifferently. You don't have to worry. This young master is naturally gentle and honest, open-minded and approachable. I will never easily harm the lives of others. I have always been cultivating the martial Tao with the desire to help the weak and help the weak. How could I harm you? Sigh, there aren't many kind-hearted people like Ben Shao in this world. Congratulations to host for successfully boasting. You have received 1000 EXP and 1 bragging point. Beiteng Zhantian's eyelids twitched upon hearing this. His eyes almost popped out from their socket. He never thought this Wang Kai would be so shameless, who was able to boast without blushing at all. Humph, at least you know what's good for you. Since you know your place, hand over the Netherworld sword now and I'll spare your life on behalf of the Beiteng clan, as long as your cultivation is crippled. Beiteng Zhantian sneered. In the end, wasn't he just afraid of the Beiteng clan? Since he was trying to cover his face by boasting, why not give him a way out? Whoosh, whoosh. Ling Feng and Kenren glanced at each other before they put away their long swords and broken sabers. Then, they took a few steps back and looked at Wang Kai with a playful expression. Although they had only known him for a short time, they could easily see through his character. Bragging was just a habit of his. However, it did not mean that he would let Beiteng Zhantian off so easily. Forget it, since you only want to cripple my cultivation, I'll take your arm. As soon as Wang Kai finished speaking, before Beiteng Zhantian could react, the Netherworld sword appeared in his hand. Under the cover of his azure battle chi, the Netherworld sword swept across the air. In the blink of an eye, an azure glow and fresh blood appeared, and an arm was sent flying into the air. Plop! Beiteng Zhantian's body fell to the ground as blood gushed out like a fountain. His heart-wrenching cries of agony rang out incessantly. However, this only lasted for a few breaths before his eyes widened as he lay lifelessly on the ground. Congratulations to the host for killing someone for the first time. The killing function has been successfully activated. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the target. You have gained 1000 experience points. Whoosh! Wang Kai's face darkened when he heard the notification. He stared at Beiteng Zhantian, who was lying on the ground, in astonishment. He could not help but smack his lips. His throat felt dry, and his body began to tremble slightly. Murder! I actually killed someone. Dead. Kenren's expression froze as he licked his lips in shock. His hand that was about to rub his bald head paused in midair. He's dead. There's nothing I can do to save him, Ling Feng said coldly. His cold gaze fell on the Netherworld sword in Wang Kai's hand. Ah, you actually killed Beiteng Zhantian. Li Qingfeng had been crouching next to Beiteng Zhantian the whole time, his face and body covered in his own blood. He couldn't help but wipe his face with his hand. The sticky, wet sensation and the severed arm of the corpse next to him made him pale in fright. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he managed to get up and ran out of the spiritual pivot courtyard like a madman. Stop! Kenren hurriedly chased after him, but Wang Kai stretched out his arm and stopped him. Wang Kai's expression kept changing as he took a deep breath. He couldn't help but increase the strength of his palm that was pressing on Kenren's shoulder. Kenren's shoulder bones creaked as he grimaced in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. Is this your first time killing someone? Kenren's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth and endured the pain, while staring at Wang Kai in surprise. It's definitely your first time, Ling Feng said coldly. Wang Kai's face turned pale. He let out a long sigh and slowly let go of Kenrin. The sweat on his palm proved that his emotions were extremely unstable. I didn't mean to kill anyone. Wang Kai shook his head and let out a sigh with a complicated expression. He looked at the netherworld sword in his hand and let out a wry smile. He kept it in his space ring and walked into the room, his body slightly swaying. Kenrin grinned and wiped his bald head. He licked his lips and said with a hideous grin, "Senior brother is quite interesting." "He's not suitable for cultivation," Ling Feng said coldly. Patter. The door slowly opened and Elder Lingshu walked out with her hands behind her back. She looked at Wang Kai's room and said with a smile, "Cultivation isn't all about killing people. There are many people in this world who deserve to be killed. It depends on one's temperament whether to kill them or not. Just like you only wanted to cut off one of Beitang Tianlei's arms. As for Beitang Zhantian, you only wanted to cut off his limbs, not his life. I don't have the ability to resist the Beitang family," Ling Feng said coldly. Kenrin licked his lips and wiped his bald head. He said with a hideous grin, "That's right. If we were strong enough, let alone Beitang Tianlei, even if there were hundreds or thousands of him, we would still kill him." Wang Kai sat on the chair and looked at his hands with a strange expression. He shrugged and shook his head as he cursed, "Damn, it's fine to kill that kind of person. The key is that I actually used the wrong weapon. This person's death. It's really embarrassing." Fatso Lu, who was eavesdropping at the door, slapped his forehead and sighed. "So that's the reason. No wonder he pretended to be so regretful. He's just afraid of embarrassing himself." "But what's the kill function?" "It only gave me experience points, but it didn't give me any bragging points." Wang Kai mumbled to himself with a strange expression. He clicked open the system and looked at the new option curiously. The kill function. Killing a martial artist of the same rank would give him 1,000 experience points. The same goes for the second rank, third rank, and fourth rank martial artists. Killing a martial artist of the same rank would give him 2,000 experience points. A martial artist of the same rank would give him 3,000 experience points, and so on. Killing a martial artist of a lower rank would only give him 1,000 experience points, and killing a martial artist of a higher rank would give him an extra 1,000 experience points. Wang Kai looked at it and suddenly understood. He couldn't help but laugh excitedly. "Haha, killing people is definitely the fastest way to break through the realm. Bragging and killing people would give him experience points." The speed at which he could achieve a breakthrough was unimaginable. Thinking of this, Wang Kai's eyes became strange. The corner of his mouth curled up and he muttered softly, "Let's see who dares to act tough in front of this young master in the future." As the saying goes, a general's success is built on thousands of bones. Chapter 42. Shenwu Academy is controlled by the Beitang family. Although the marshal's residence is not afraid of them, Beitang Zhantian is still a fifth-generation descendant. Now that he has been accidentally killed, I'm afraid things will get a little troublesome. I need to enter the 9-level Sky Tower as soon as possible to activate the power of the bloodline and return to Royal City. Wang Kai furrowed his brows as he thought to himself. Even if the marshal's residence was not afraid of Shenwu Academy, he was still under their watch. Furthermore, in Shenwu Academy, there were many people who were stronger than him in the martial way. If he was not careful, he would be played to death. It had always been the case of playing to death. How could he be played to death? "Bastard, where is Wang Kai? How dare you kill a descendant of the Beitang family? You deserve to die." Rumble. An earth-shattering roar suddenly resounded, causing the house to shake violently. Elder Lingshu and the rest stood calmly in the courtyard, looking at the dozens of figures that had appeared at the entrance of the courtyard. Their expressions were extremely calm, and they did not feel the slightest bit surprised by this. Since the moment Beiteng Zhantian had died, they had already expected the scene before them to take place. Crack, crack, bang, bang bang. The tables, chairs and other decorations in the room were all shaken and shattered. It felt as if the house could collapse at any time. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows when he saw this. He stretched out his hand and suddenly pressed it against the table, but he found that he still couldn't stop the cup and pot from jumping. Such a situation made him somewhat nervous. If sound alone could achieve such power, how terrifying would it be if force was used? Damn it! Am I destined to die today and turn into a cup of yellow soil scattered all over Fan Province? Wang Kai cursed in a low voice with a darkened face. The strength of these people was not something he could deal with. No matter how he resisted, even if he used all his skills, in the end, even escaping would be a luxury. Clatter! The door was suddenly pushed open, and Fatso Lu hurriedly ran in. His fat face was covered in sweat, and he said with lingering fear, "Young Master Kai, we are in big trouble this time. The Hall of Elders sent out a total of 32 elders. Although Elder Lingshu stopped them, it looks like they will not stop until they kill you." The Hall of Elders, 32 elders. Wang Kai was startled when he heard this. He stood up in astonishment and smacked his lips, saying, "It seems that Ben Shao has a lot of face. 32 elders of the martial Grandmaster realm came to capture me. TSK, in terms of arrogance, who can beat me? Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point." Plop! Fatso Lu fell to the ground and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. He couldn't help but give a thumbs up and praise. Young Master Kai is indeed young Master Kai. You are about to die, but you can still brag. Now is not the time to brag, young Master Kai. Quickly! Let Ben Shao escape? What a joke! Ben Shao was omnipotent. Where in the world could he not go? Where can't they find a foothold? What can mere 32 elders of the Shunwu Academy do to me? Wang Kai said with a disdainful smile. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. How? Is there a secret passage in the spiritual pivot courtyard? After Wang Kai finished bragging, he grabbed Fatso Lu's collar and asked anxiously. If he couldn't beat him, he could only run. If he didn't run, he would be an idiot. Fatso Lu tilted his head and felt that his brain had short-circuited. After a while, he finally reacted. Panting heavily, he shouted with red eyes, "Young Master Kai, I didn't mean for you to escape. The spiritual pivot courtyard is surrounded by the elders. You will not be able to escape safely. What I meant was for you to quickly return the Black Dragon Blade to me, as well as the Netherworld Sword and the banknotes. If young Master Kai is really unlucky..." Purring! Wang Kai's face darkened when he heard this. He glared at him fiercely and suddenly raised his foot to kick Fatso Lu, who rolled on the ground several times. He simply wanted to skin him on the spot and pull out his tendons. Damn! After all this time, this guy's goal was the Black Dragon Blade. He was also thinking about the Netherworld Sword and tens of millions of banknotes. Wang Kai, why don't you come out and accept your death? Hearing the shouts outside, Wang Kai frowned slightly. He looked at Fatso Lu on the ground and shook his head with a sigh. Forget it. A dead man is like an extinguished lamp. Fatso Lu, since you and I are brothers, the Black Dragon Blade, let me take it to the grave. Fatso Lu didn't react until Wang Kai left the room. His face was stiff and the corners of his mouth were twitching. He didn't expect Wang Kai to have such a trick up his sleeve. 32 elders, Wang Kai, have a lot of face. Wang Kai's expression was extremely calm. With his hands behind his back, he leisurely walked into the courtyard. Looking at the dozens of people standing in front of him, he felt extremely strange. Even though they all looked like they wanted nothing more than to kill him, none of them dared to make a move until he appeared. Humph! Wang Kai, did Beiteng Zhantian die at your hands? Beiteng Hong, who was the leader, asked coldly. Wang Kai shrugged when he heard this, looked at him indifferently, and gently nodded. Yes, but the real cause of his death is Elder Beiteng's. Hearing this, the elders all frowned and looked at Beiteng Hong with a puzzled expression. Presumptuous! What does Beiteng Zhantian's death have to do with me? Beiteng Hong angrily rebuked and stared at Wang Kai with an extremely cold gaze. His hands were clenched into fists. If it weren't for Elder Lingshu, why would he say so much? Whoosh! With a flash of light, the netherworld sword appeared in Wang Kai's hand. He waved it at the elders and said indifferently, Netherworld's sword contains the death chi of the underworld, and Beiteng Zhantian was killed by this sword. Humph, the netherworld sword is indeed this elder's sword, but it was snatched away by you during the martial competition ceremony. You even used this elder's sword to kill a direct descendant of the Beiteng family. Do you know your crime? Beiteng Hong coldly snorted. Wang Kai curled his lips and snorted with a disdainful expression. If you didn't ask Beiteng Zhantian to bring people to ask me for the netherworld sword, how could he die here? The rules of the martial competition ceremony are clear. The winner has the right to take away the belongings of the loser. If that's the case, why did you ask Beiteng Zhantian to come here? Sophistry. I never asked Zhantian to come here to ask for the sword, and I never asked about the matters between you juniors. However, now that Zhantian has died, as an elder of the Hall of Elders, I have the right to take you back and punish you. Beiteng Hong said coldly. That's right. No matter what the reason was, Beiteng Zhantian has died. Wang Kai, do you admit your crime? The elders looked at him coldly. Those who could become elders of the academy were all direct descendants of the 5 great families. Now that a direct descendant had died at the hands of a disciple with a different surname, if they didn't deal with it properly, wouldn't it encourage the killing of direct descendants? Wang Kai frowned slightly when he heard this. Indeed, his words were too far-fetched, but he had to make a final struggle in the face of death. Beiteng Zhantian joined forces with the 5 strongest direct descendants of the 5 great families to come to the spiritual pivot courtyard and attack us. In the end, they were defeated and even died. This only proves that their skills are inferior. Do you think I should obediently show my neck and let them cut it off? Wang Kai said with a disdainful smile. Chapter 43. What a load of nonsense! Zhan Tian was only a first-grade martial general. How could he have the ability to kill you? Moreover, even Dongfang too, the strongest of the 5, admitted that he was no match for you. How could Zhan Tian dare to attack you? If that's the case, why did you say that he wanted to kill you? Beiteng Hong rebuked. Elder Hong is right. Wang Kai killed Beiteng Zhan Tian, the 5th-generation descendant of the Beiteng family. He deserves to be executed. We are here to find out the truth. Now that we have found out, Wang Kai must be captured and punished in the Elders' Hall. The other elders nodded in agreement. As an elder of the Elders' Hall, they argued with a junior like Wang Kai many times. They just wanted to give Elder Lingshu an explanation. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one wanted to go against Elder Lingshu. After all, the difference in their martial realms was too great. Perhaps only the palace master could suppress him. Elder Lingshu, now that we have found out the truth, Wang Kai's martial realm is higher than Zhan Tian's. It would be fine if he taught him a lesson. However, he chose to kill Beiteng Zhan Tian. As the leader of the Elders' Hall, I believe Elder Lingshu should know better than us how to deal with such a crime. Beiteng Hong said coldly. After he finished speaking, the courtyard of Lingshu became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Ling Feng and Ken Ren stood quietly by the side and looked at Elder Lingshu, who had an indifferent expression on his face. They wanted to know how he would deal with this. The reason why he didn't kill Beitang Tianlei and only chopped off one of his arms was because he was afraid of the Beitang family's pressure. It was a fair duel in the martial competition ceremony. As long as he didn't take the lives of the direct descendants of the 5 families, the loss of his arm could only be attributed to the fact that he wasn't as strong as his opponent. The 5 families wouldn't lower themselves to come and question him. Now that Beitang Zhantian was dead, a disciple with a different surname had killed a direct descendant of the Beitang family, who dominated the Xinwu Academy. The severity of the situation was obvious. Since Beitang Zhantian's martial realm is lower than Wang Kai's, he still dared to join forces with the direct descendants of the 5 families. Unfortunately, he died in the spiritual pivot courtyard. This only proves that he was inferior. He thought that no one would dare to kill him because of his status as a direct descendant. Such a stupid direct descendant, it was better not to have him. "You can go back now," Elder Lingshu said lightly. Whoosh. Hearing this, Elder Beitang's face turned pale. He had never thought that Elder Ling Shu would refuse to capture Wang Kai even though they had joined forces with 32 other elders. If they were to let this go, where would the Beitang family's reputation go? "How dare you?" "Ling Shu, you are not the head of the Hall of Elders, nor are you an elder of the Hall of Elders. What right do you have to protect a criminal? Could it be that he wanted to use his martial arts realm to suppress others? Do you think that no one in the Xinwu Academy can suppress you?" Beitang Hong rebuked. Elder Lingshu glanced at him and said with a smile, "Haha, so what if I suppress you with my martial arts realm? Today you've come at the right time. I'll make it clear here. No matter if you're a direct descendant of the Beitang family or the other 4 big families, no one is allowed to interfere when you fight with my disciples, regardless of life or death. If the experts of the older generation dare to fight without permission, I won't sit by and do nothing." Hearing this, everyone fell silent. Since Elder Lingshu had said so, if they wanted to punish Wang Kai, they would have to resort to violence. However, even if they joined forces with 32 other elders, they would still be no match for Elder Lingshu. "Haha, since Elder Lingshu has said so, how about Su or fight with Wang Kai?" Suddenly, a chuckle sounded, causing all the elders to frown and turn around. When they saw a young man standing at the gate of the courtyard, their eyes lit up with joy. "Su-er!" Beitang Hong cried out in surprise. Elder Lingshu frowned and her face turned pale. She looked at Wang Kai worriedly. She had already said that if the 2 sides fought fairly, she would not intervene in the outcome of the duel. "Beitang Su." Kanran's eyes hardened and the veins on his forehead bulged. He took out his black dagger and wiped his bald head. He licked his lips and was about to step forward. But Ling Feng looked cold and reached out to grab Kanran's shoulder. He said coldly, "You can't beat him. Don't rush." "He's Beitang Su? The culprit who suppressed Ling Feng and Kanran for 3 years?" Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and looked curiously at the newcomer. He was quite handsome and was about 25 or 26 years old. He was dressed in white and had a golden belt around his waist. Even the scabbard of his sword was golden. Seeing this, Wang Kai's expression became strange. He frowned and said speechlessly, "The Beitang family finally has someone who doesn't boast about his name. However, his attire is pretentious." Beitang Su was the strongest disciple of the 4th generation of the Beitang family. He was a 9th-grade martial general and was about to become a martial ancestor. "Wang Kai, do you dare to fight with me?" Beitang Su stood in an indifferent manner as he casually glanced at Ling Feng and Kanran. Disdain flashed across his eyes as he stared at Wang Kai with interest. They were both in the martial general realm, but there was a difference of 5 grades. The difference of 1 grade was like heaven and earth. Even Wang Kai did not have absolute confidence in defeating him. In fact, he did not even have the strength to fight. Beitang Su is a 9th-grade martial general. Kai, whether you fight or not is up to you. Elder Ling Shu said lightly. Elder Ling Shu, isn't this unfair? Although Su is a fourth-generation descendant, he is still part of the younger generation. He is not an elder of the Elder Hall, nor is he a master of the older generation. How can he be afraid? Beiteng Hong sneered. Wang Kai looked disdainful. He could not deal with a martial ancestor realm master, but he could deal with a martial general. He immediately put his hands behind his back and sneered. Let's fight, but it has to be in 3 days. Kai. Elder Ling Shu frowned. She knew Wang Kai's character and knew that he would not back down. Instead, he would confront his opponent head-on. She had wanted to remind him to refuse the battle, but now it seemed that it was useless. Haha, in that case, 3 days later, you and I will fight in the battle arena. The loser will have to hand over his cultivation method and martial skill, and the Netherworld sword will be returned to its owner. What do you think? Beiteng Su narrowed his eyes and smiled. He was surprised that Wang Kai dared to accept his challenge. However, after thinking about it, he thought that Wang Kai was overestimating himself. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows. He did not expect that Beiteng Su's goal was his martial skill and cultivation method. No wonder he did not go into seclusion to break through to the martial ancestor realm. Although the winner of the duel had the right to take away the loser's belongings, if the loser did not have his cultivation method and martial skill with him, he could not take them away. Was that why Beiteng Su proposed such a condition? Can you not act tough in front of us? Are your cultivation method and martial skill on the same level as mine? What's more, what kind of weapon do you have that can be compared with the Netherworld sword? If you don't have it, Ben Shao will not accept this request. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled contemptuously. Since he wanted to gamble, he had to pay a price. Otherwise, wouldn't he be at a disadvantage? Chapter 44. Haha, the Beiteng family's martial technique is called the 7 Stars spell. It is as famous as the General's Residence's martial technique, the 100 Battle Star. The martial technique is the Dark North Seal. The loser will have to hand over the martial technique and martial technique. What do you think? Beiteng Su squinted his eyes and smiled. No. The 7 Stars spell is the foundation of the Beiteng family's martial arts. The Dark North Seal is one of the 5 martial techniques of the Xunwu dynasty. How can it be used as a wager? That's right. This kid's martial arts realm is only a 4th-grade martial general. The martial technique he cultivates is definitely not of the Dark North Seal. No matter how exquisite it is, it cannot be compared to the Dark North Seal. The faces of all the elders changed when they heard this. Especially the elders of the Beiteng family, they did not hesitate to speak up to stop him. If the Beiteng family were to hand over their foundational techniques, how could they become the master of the Xunwu Academy in the future? Why are you all so worried? Since Nephew Su dares to take out such a wager, it means that he is confident in winning. We should just wait and see. That's right. Nephew Su is already a 9th-grade martial general at such a young age. He will enter the ranks of the martial arts grandmasters soon. It is only a matter of time before he enters the Elder Hall. Since that is the case, doesn't he have the right to act on his own? After the elders of the other 4 families recovered from their shock, they spoke out in agreement. Just as the elders of the Beiteng family were worried, if Beiteng Su really lost to Wang Kai, the 7 Stars spell and the Dark North Seal would be handed over to the general's residence. Then the Beiteng family's position as the master of the Xunwu Academy would be shaken. Even if Wang Kai lost, the Xunwu Academy would still obtain the Dark North Seal from the general's residence. They would also obtain an exquisite martial technique that would allow one to step into the air before reaching the martial arts grandmaster realm. The other 5 families of the Xunwu Academy would naturally get a share of the profit. No matter what, Whoever won or lost in this bet was a good thing for the other four great clans. Wang Kai's expression was extremely playful. He rubbed his chin and looked at them with disdain. The 32 elders had arrived in such a menacing manner. How long had it been? They had already begun to secretly fight amongst themselves. It could be seen that the 5 families of the Shunwu Academy were not united. Stop arguing. Let Su decide on his own. Beiteng Hong frowned and shouted. How could he not know the thoughts of the elders of the 4 great clans? However, he didn't care too much about it in his heart. With Beiteng Su's martial realm, wanting to crush Wang Kai was as easy as flipping his hand. Elder Hong, this is taboo for the Beiteng family. Although Beiteng Su's martial arts realm was higher than Wang Kai's, but they didn't want to gamble with the foundation of Beiteng family. The world was constantly changing. If something went wrong, wouldn't Beiteng family fall into the abyss? Have you thought it through? If you don't dare, then we can have a duel without any stakes. Beiteng Su asked with disdain. He ignored the argument of the elders and his eyes were fixed on Wang Kai. Just as Beiteng Hong thought, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. He was only afraid that Wang Kai wouldn't dare to take the bet. Wang Kai shrugged and raised a finger. He smiled indifferently and said, Beiteng Su, you don't need to provoke me. Think about how Ben Shao has been famous in Fan Province for hundreds of years. Whether it is poetry or martial arts, he has never been defeated. As long as you dare to bet, then Ben Shao will accept. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Famous in Fan Province for hundreds of years? Poetry, martial arts, gambling? Never been defeated? Everyone's faces stiffened and the corners of their mouths twitched. No one knew if he had been defeated or not, but to say that he had been famous for hundreds of years was undoubtedly bragging. Even Wang Shang of the Shenwu dynasty only had a lifespan of 200 years. Haha, that's good. 3 days from now, let's fight to the death on the martial arena. Beiteng Su smiled and turned to leave the courtyard. Now that he had achieved his goal, he naturally left. Elder Lingshu, I hope you can teach Wang Kai well in these 3 days. It would be best if he could break through 5 grades and reach the peak of Martial General. Ha! Beiteng Hong left with his hands behind his back and laughed. Breaking through 5 grades in 3 days, from a 4th grade Martial General to a 9th grade Martial General? This was absolutely impossible. All the elders had strange expressions on their faces as they left one after another, each with their own thoughts. The menacing martial Great Master realm had come to an end. Kair, are you confident? Elder Lingshu's face was full of worry. She had cultivated for nearly 100 years and had seen at least 800 if not 1,000 genius disciples. Not to mention breaking through 5 grades in 3 days, even breaking through 2 grades would be difficult. Even if one could break through 1 grade, he would be considered a monster. Kenren licked his lips and rubbed his bald head. He grinned and said, Eldest senior brother, don't worry. Even if we lose, we brothers will avenge you in the future. That's right, Ling Feng said coldly. The 2 brothers were already irreconcilable with the Beiteng family, but they were helpless because they didn't have the ability to contend against the Beiteng family for the time being. Seeing that Wang Kai dared to challenge Beiteng Su, who was a 9th grade martial general, regardless of the outcome, they felt that he had some guts. Even if this courage was stupid and reckless in their eyes, it was still worthy of respect. Wang Kai's expression was extremely arrogant. He habitually flicked his sleeve and raised his head to clear his throat. He said heroically, Who is Ben Shao? He is the god of war who has descended to the mortal world. He can make gods and Buddhas bow down to him. Not to mention breaking through 5 grades in 3 days, even stepping into the martial Great Master realm would be a piece of cake for him. A mere Beiteng Su is nothing to worry about. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through and reaching the 5th grade Martial General realm. Hearing the prompt, Wang Kai's expression became even more arrogant. He thought to himself, yes, it's that simple. Other people need to cultivate for a long time to break through, but I only need to brag a few times. Awesome! Young Master Kai is really a role model for my generation. Since young Master Kai is so interested, why don't we first discuss the Black Dragon Blade? Fatty Lu suddenly laughed and praised. Wang Kai's face suddenly darkened. His forehead was full of black lines as he stared at Fatty Lu. He took out the Black Dragon Blade and shook it in his hand. He curled his lips and snorted, "Damn, Fatty, although you are my brother, but as the saying goes, even blood brothers must settle accounts clearly. If you don't give me 10 million silver, then you can forget about getting the Black Dragon Blade for the rest of your life, unless what? Young Master Kai, as a brother, I will do my best to help you." Fatty Lu immediately became spirited. "Unless you become a monk, not only will I give you the Black Dragon Blade, I will also give you 10,000 silver notes as travel expenses." Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and said with a grin. Fatty Lu's face stiffened when he heard this. He couldn't help but shake his big belly. He turned around and ran away. What Black Dragon Blade? He had already thrown it to the back of his mind. Instead of following the Buddhist precepts and becoming a monk, he might as well find a way to gather the silver notes. Chapter 45. Looks like I have to pass through the Tower of Babel as soon as possible and return to King City. Is Ji Chen still around? Wang Kai thought to himself. As long as Fatso Lu did not want to become a monk, Master Ji Chen would not leave the marshal's mansion. Leaving such an unfathomable monk at home made him feel uneasy. Furthermore, in Wang Kai's opinion, if Fatso Lu really left with Ji Chen, it would not be a bad thing. Thinking of this, Wang Kai immediately bowed and said bluntly, "Master Ling Shu, I want to pass through the 9 levels of the Tower of Babel." The Tower of Babel? You want to use it to break through? Elder Ling Shu frowned. The Shenwu Academy had a weapon called the Tower of Babel. It was a Grandmaster weapon and was the foundation of the Academy. To enter the Tower of Babel, one had to be a martial general and below the age of 30. Each level was strange and tricky. It did not only test the martial artist's talent and aptitude. Each level was filled with difficulties, life and death. If one failed to pass the test, it meant death. There were not many martial artists who were able to pass through the 9 levels of the Tower of Babel. Most of them died in the process. Even a 9th grade martial general could be trapped in the Tower of Babel. Wang Kai was only a 4th grade martial general. How could he pass through the Tower of Babel? Elder Lingshu frowned as she pondered. Her eyes were filled with worry. As the leader of the original elders of the Shenwu Academy, she was naturally familiar with the Tower of Babel. She had never intended for Wang Kai to risk his life in the Tower of Babel. However, given his current situation, the Tower of Babel was the only way for him to break through to the next level as soon as possible. If you enter the Tower of Babel without becoming a 9th grade martial general, you will have a slim chance of survival. Although it can allow a martial artist's martial arts foundation to be perfected quickly, you will have to exchange your life for it. Have you thought it through? Elder Ling Shu said lightly. Wang Kai was stunned. He did not expect the Tower of Babel to be so powerful. If he was not a 9th grade martial general, he would have a slim chance of survival? Did it have to be so cruel? Don't worry, Master Lingshu. I'm very resourceful and have unlimited possibilities in the future. I'm also protected by the gods and Buddhas. Since I still have a life, I'll definitely pass it smoothly. Wang Kai smacked his lips and said. His heart was trembling a little. Even he himself wasn't confident in his bragging. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Protected by the gods and Buddhas? Didn't you just say that you could make all the gods and Buddhas submit to you? Now you want them to protect you? Elder Lingshu's eyelids twitched and her face stiffened. She was furious and scolded. It's okay to brag in the past, but how can you joke about life and death now? Master's teachings are reasonable. However, Master can rest assured that with your disciple's ability, entering a mere 9-story sky-reaching tower will be as easy as taking a stroll in the park. Wang Kai grinned. He thought to himself, if I don't brag, my entire body will feel uncomfortable. If I don't brag, how will I become a 9th-grade marshal general? Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Elder Lingshu held her breath, and it took her a long time to recover. She looked at Wang Kai helplessly. It seemed that this habit of bragging could not be changed. She shook her head and sighed, forget it. Since you've made up your mind, I'll take you to the 9-story sky-reaching tower. Master, we also want to enter the sky-reaching tower with eldest senior brother. Kanran licked his lips and said respectfully with cupped fists. Master, please allow us to enter. Ling Feng said coldly and bowed. Ling Feng and Kanran had heard about the 9-story sky-reaching tower for many years. However, due to the oppression of Beitang Su and the Beitang family, they had been unable to break through to the martial general realm. Due to the restriction of the realm of the sky-reaching tower, they had not been able to enter. No. You have just broken through to the martial general realm and are merely 1st-grade martial generals. Your realm is too low. If you enter the sky-reaching tower, even the 1st story will take your lives. Elder Lingshu refused. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and put his hands behind his back. He smiled indifferently and said, Master is right. If you want to enter the sky-reaching tower, you have to at least reach the level of your eldest senior brother. There is no doubt that one's aptitude and talent are extraordinary. However, the most important thing is one's character. Sometimes, the sky-reaching tower also depends on one's appearance. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Eldest senior brother, do you mean that our aptitude and talent are not as good as yours? Kanran licked his lips and rubbed his bald head with force. He looked quite unconvinced. Ling Feng glanced at him coldly and said, Eldest senior brother, how arrogant. Since you are willing to call me eldest senior brother, it proves that you still admire me from the bottom of your heart. At least your current realm is not as good as mine. Young people, remember not to be greedy and advance prematurely. You have to progress step by step. Just like me, I have always been humble. Wang Kai smiled shyly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. You call this being humble? Ling Feng and Kanran were extremely disdainful, especially when they saw Wang Kai's shy smile. They despised him even more in their hearts. The position of eldest senior brother will change sooner or later, Ling Feng said coldly. Kanran licked his lips and rubbed his bald head with force. He grinned and said, Big brother is right. 3rd junior brother, can you stop rubbing your head? Can't you see that it's shiny? It's like a mirror, you can even dress up. The corner of Wang Kai's mouth twitched. He did not want to look at Kanran's actions anymore. He was really annoyed. Ha! Young Master Kai, you are wrong. Can you see my bald head? 3rd senior brother bald donkey, I have a mirror here, do you want to borrow it? As Fatty Lou's laughter suddenly rang out, the veins on Kanran's forehead bulged. Damn Fatty! Your skin is getting tight again. Kanran grinned. Holding the black broken saber, he moved his feet and rushed to Fatso Lu's room. Elder Ling Shu looked at her disciples fooling around and felt a headache coming on. She waved her hand and said, Kair, have you really decided? Once you enter Tong Tian Tower, your life and death will be up to you. You must consider it carefully. Of course. Master, don't worry. In this disciple's dictionary, there is no such thing as danger. Tong Tian Tower only has 9 floors. Even if it has 99 floors, I can easily pass through it. Wang Kai smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Bastard Beitang Su, you made me brag about my bragging. When I activate my bloodline power, I will definitely let you experience inhumane torture. Well, in that case, come with me. Elder Ling Shu sighed and grabbed Wang Kai's shoulder. She stepped into the air and disappeared from Ling Shu's courtyard in the blink of an eye. Tong Tian Tower, I am coming. Chapter 46. The Shenwu mountain was lofty and lofty. Its throat was filled with clouds and mist, and various buildings were faintly discernible. Wang Kai, who was being held by Elder Lingshu by the shoulder, stepped through the clouds and mist. Only then could he see the true appearance of the peak. In front of the palaces there were demonic beasts, and around the peak there were even birds circling. It was like a wonderland of immortals. Such a scene made Wang Kai stunned. Compared with the mountainside where the courtyard of Lingshu was located, it was like the difference between the immortal world and the mortal world. They were not on the same level at all. It was as if he had come to a different world. Even though he knew that this mountain was captured by Wang Shang from the North Mountain, now that he saw it with his own eyes, he could not help but be secretly amazed. What kind of martial arts realm was Wang Shang of the Shenwu dynasty in? How could he capture such a majestic mountain and bring it here? Elder Lingshu held Wang Kai and stood in the air at the same level as the peak. She warned him seriously, the sky-reaching tower is the ancestral weapon of the Shenwu Academy. It is the treasure of the academy. Now it is controlled by the Beitang family. If you want to enter, I am afraid the Beitang family will be more than happy to let you in. But you must remember, do not trust anything or anyone in there. If you are not careful, you will be spied on and even killed. Could the Beitang family be up to something? Wang Kai was stunned. He looked away from the demonic beasts and could not help but smack his lip. He nodded and said with a smile, Master, don't worry. My ability is not something that ordinary people can spy on. Even immortals and deities will have to bow their heads and retreat. As for killing, haha, of course it is impossible. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have gained 1,000 experience points and bragging points by 1 point. After bragging, Wang Kai was full of smiles when he heard the notification. Just as Elder Lingshu was about to scold him angrily, Wang Kai asked again, Master, after I successfully enter the Tower of Babel, I still need you to protect me outside, in case the old bastards of the Beitang family succeed. Upon hearing this, Elder Lingshu's face stiffened, and she choked back her words of reprimand. The corners of her mouth twitched and she sighed, feeling a headache coming on. Then, she said lightly, I will guard against any unruly people. However, in the Tower of Babel, I cannot interfere. You have to rely on yourself for everything. You must know that you must always be cautious. Oh, so it's Elder Lingshu. Are you here to send this boy into the Tower of Babel? Suddenly, a laugh rang out from a palace on the mountain peak, causing the entrenched demonic beasts to prostrate themselves. The flying beasts that were circling around also landed in front of the palace. They were unusually respectful, as if they were worshipping a king. Was it a demonic beast that spoke just now? Wang Kai asked in astonishment. Upon hearing this, Elder Lingshu's mouth twitched, and there seemed to be a smile in her eyes. However, she held back and replied, Junior brother Ling Dan, I haven't seen you for many years. It seems that you have made a breakthrough in your cultivation. Elder Lingshu, please don't talk nonsense. Since the day you left the Elder Hall, you and I no longer have the same sect. Come down. Whoosh. Elder Lingshu's expression did not change. She grabbed Wang Kai and landed in front of the palace. Immediately, the demonic beasts were on guard. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws to provoke them. Upon seeing this, Wang Kai was even more convinced that Ling Dan was a demonic beast. Otherwise, how could these demonic beasts be so subdued? Even though Elder Lingshu's martial arts realm was unfathomable, they still dared to show a fighting stance. Wolves, tigers, leopards, eagles, bears, eagles, cranes. Is this a zoo? Wang Kai's gaze swept past them one by one, and he couldn't help but smack his lips, feeling a bit speechless. Especially when he saw the words, Pill Beast, written on the plaque above the palace. He was even more certain that this Pill Elder was definitely a demonic beast. Is this the one who injured Jur? Lingshu, you have really taken in a good disciple. He is just as cruel and ruthless as you were in the past. An old man in a gray robe walked out of the palace. He was about 50 or 60 years old, and his face was serious and cold. Beside him, there was a very beautiful little peacock. It was more than a meter tall, and the peacock seemed to be very intelligent. It was blinking its eyes and swaying its little head up and down as it looked at Wang Kai. Its eyes contained a human-like curiosity. Haha, Ling Dan, let's not talk about what happened in the past. If you really want to discuss it with me, I can tell your disciples about it. Elder Lingshu smiled faintly, and her expression was quite mischievous. Okay. Martial Aunt Lingshu, tell me about it. I really want to know what happened to Master. The little peacock tilted its head and asked crisply. Its voice was pleasing to the ear, and it sounded a little childish. Damn. This female peacock has become a spirit. It can speak human language. Wang Kai's expression changed slightly, and he looked at the little peacock with a very interesting expression. Looking at her colorful feathers, he really wanted to pluck a few of them off. Swoosh. As soon as he said that, Elder Lingshu and Elder Ling Dan were stunned. The demonic beasts were also stunned on the spot. Bastard! Where did this little kid come from? How dare he insult the noble, beautiful, and powerful lady? The little peacock shrieked. Suddenly, she was so angry that she spread her tail. Wisps of fragrance wafted out and instantly filled the entire palace. Plop, plop, all the demonic beasts shook their bodies, and their eyes were half opened. Finally, their heads tilted, and they all fell to the ground and fainted on the spot. Demonic aura. Is this the so-called demonic aura? That's amazing. Little peacock, you're very good. I think very highly of you. Come and be my mount. Follow Benshao, and you won't have to worry about food and drink. You can have whatever you want. Wang Kai was even more surprised when he saw this. He immediately clapped his hands and praised, and without saying a word, he went forward to approach her. Slap. Elder Lingshu quickly stopped Wang Kai. She frowned slightly and looked at Elder Ling Dan coldly. She said indifferently, Ling Dan, I haven't seen you for many years. Not only have you improved in martial arts, but your temper has also become a lot worse. Take care of your disciples. If they dare to talk nonsense again, I won't let them off easily. Ling Dan flung his sleeves and snorted coldly with a pale face. Little bastard, you're quite powerful. No wonder you could injure that annoying guy, Wanzhe. You must have reached the 3rd grade martial general realm, right? Like I said, I'm only a 2nd grade demon general. Only warriors with higher cultivation than me can resist the attack of the demonic aura. Little Peacock kept talking. She tilted her little head and looked at Wang Kai. The curiosity in her eyes grew stronger. 2nd grade demon general? Is that the name of the demonic beast's martial arts realm? Wang Kai was stunned for a moment, and then he understood. He turned a blind eye to Elder Ling Dan's anger. With Master Lingshu by his side, Elder Ling Dan could not do anything. He looked at her curiously and said, Little Peacock, You must have a wish that you haven't fulfilled, right? Come and be my mount. Ben Shao is omnipotent. As long as you say it, I can help you make it come true. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've gained 1,000 experience and bragging points by 1 point. Chapter 47. You're just a marshal general. Can you help me achieve my wish? How dare you boast that you're invincible? Why don't you show me what you can do? All I see is that you're bragging. Little Peacock said disdainfully. The disdain in her eyes was very human-like. Air step. Pa, pa. Wang Kai tapped his foot lightly, and his figure immediately stepped into the air. Every time he took a step, the air would explode into a circle of ripples. How is it? Flying is not something a martial arts grandmaster can do. As long as Ben Shao wants to, he can do it at any time. Even though Ben Shao is just a martial general, if he gets serious, he can lift the Shunwu mountain with his bare hands. Wang Kai smiled calmly with his hands behind his back. He looked as if he was talking about something insignificant. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've gained 1,000 experience points and bragging points by 1 point. Little Peacock's eyes lit up at this scene. Someone who was not a martial arts grandmaster could step into the air. A mere martial general could lift the Shunwu mountain with his bare hands. If she had heard this before, she would have been very disdainful. However, now that she had seen Wang Kai's ability to step into the air, her heart was filled with desire. That's amazing! Teach me this move! Little Peacock cried out crisply. She could not help but take a step forward. However, as soon as she moved, she was stopped by Elder Lingdan. Little Peacock seemed to be very dissatisfied. She tilted her head and said angrily, "Master, why are you stopping me?" Elder Lingdan's face turned ugly. He glared at her fiercely. Then, he turned to Elder Lingshu and said coldly, "Lingshu, you have a good plan. You know that Ro-Er is still young, so you brought your disciple to trick her? If that's the case, you can leave now. Kair, come down. Don't make trouble," Elder Lingshu said lightly. Wang Kai shrugged and slowly floated down with his hands behind his back. His eyes were fixed on the little peacock. Seeing that she was also looking at him, he was even more determined to get his hands on this little peacock. "Lingdan, open the Tower of Babel," Elder Lingshu said. Elder Lingdan was surprised. At first, he had only guessed, but he wasn't sure. Now that he heard Ling Shu's words, he sneered in his heart. He didn't think that Ling Shu would really allow Wang Kai to enter Tong Tian Tower. He was just a low-level martial general. Was he here to seek death? "The tower is over there. Go in by yourself," Elder Spirit Pill sneered. He raised his hand and pointed into the distance. Then he took the unwilling little peacock and disappeared from the palace. In the center of the large square in front of the palace, there was a small golden pagoda that seemed to be only 5 or 6 meters tall. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and curiously walked closer to take a look. He saw that the pagoda was indeed divided into 9 floors, and in the center of each floor, there was a tightly shut door. Such a small pagoda, how do we enter it? Can it be enlarged? Wang Kai asked in surprise. Elder Lingshu shook her head and pointed to the door at the bottom of the pagoda. She smiled and said, "You only need to walk towards the pagoda. When your body comes into contact with the pagoda, the door will open automatically and your body will shrink to enter it." Only physical contact? Wang Kai was stunned. He was even more surprised. He couldn't help but stretch out his hand and press it against the body of the Tower of Babel. With a click, the small golden door at the bottom of the pagoda suddenly opened. At this moment, Wang Kai's body shrank rapidly until he was only the size of a thumb. Before he could react, he was pulled in by a strong suction force. During this process, Wang Kai didn't have any resistance, nor did he feel anything strange. It all happened in the blink of an eye. Ling Dan, you supported the Beiteng family to take control of the Shunwu Academy. This is your freedom. If you dare to help the Beiteng family and secretly harm Wang Kai, don't blame me for not caring about our past relationship. Elder Lingshu said indifferently. She casually glanced at the palace and sat cross-legged in front of the Tower of Babel. Is this the first level of the Tower of Babel? Wang Kai was quite surprised. He looked around curiously, but all he could see was a vast expanse of whiteness. He looked down and was surprised to find that he didn't even have a shadow. There wasn't a single person around him either. Welcome to my world. From now on, you and I will accompany each other until we die. As an ethereal voice sounded, Wang Kai's face darkened. He cursed, F*CKU. Who wants to accompany you until we die? Don't be so shameless. Don't pretend to be a ghost. Come out and die. Haha, people who have just arrived in my world are as energetic as you. I look forward to seeing you in a year, 10 years, 100 years. Will you still be like this? Let me wait and see. Wang Kai couldn't help but fantasize when he heard this. If he were to really be trapped here for a long time, then he would absolutely be bored to death. Not to mention a year. He wouldn't even be willing to stay here for a day. You look down on this young master too much. Not to mention 10 years or 100 years, even if it's 1,000 years or 10,000 years, this young master would still dare to say no. This young master has existed in this world for tens of thousands of years. How could a coward like you understand my loneliness? Wang Kai snorted disdainfully. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and bragging points. Oh? So we are fated. I have also existed for tens of thousands of years. I have met countless people. Sadly, they are all like fleeting clouds. Since you can live for tens of thousands of years, I think we can accompany each other for a long time to relieve our loneliness. Oh, F*CK. When Wang Kai heard this, black lines appeared on his forehead. The corner of his mouth twitched and he said, Damn, I have met my bragging opponent today. I didn't know that you were so good at bragging. Haha, I've never bragged. I've lived for tens of thousands of years and enlightened countless experts. Some became the overlords of a region, some became the emperor of a province, and some even became the immortal of a world. However, their lifespans are limited in the end. How hateful! I possess such ability, yet I'm unable to find a good friend to accompany me. Damn it! He is definitely here to steal my rice bowl. When I meet this kind of person, I must not be emotional. I must be calm. Wang Kai's brows eased up, and his expression was indifferent to the extreme. He flicked his clothes and said with a light smile, I'm ashamed to say this, but this young master has only enlightened a single expert. Relying on this young master's guidance, not only did he become a supreme being in the universe, he even obtained the ability to live forever. Now I don't know where he is. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and bragging points. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the 6th grade Marshal General. Chapter 48. Kid, you've gone overboard with your boasting. Finally, he couldn't hold it in any longer and revealed his true colors? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes. Based on the illusory voice transmission and his words, if it were anyone else, they would have fallen for his trick. After all, the Tower of Babel was an ancestral weapon, the treasure of the Shunwu Academy. In addition, the disciples who entered were all below the age of 30 and were all martial generals. It was too easy to deceive them. Haha, this young master has lived in this world for tens of thousands of years, and I have never bragged. I have always been dutiful. It's just that my personality is too straightforward, so how can I be excessive? Wang Kai smiled indifferently. Congratulations to the host for successfully boasting. You've received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Brat, you really are a disgraceful bastard. In the past, when a disciple enters Skysplit Tower, most of them would kneel down and call me senior, begging me to allow them to enter the next level. Only a small number of people are able to maintain their original hearts and see through this illusion. But you actually dare to boast in front of me. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and put his hands behind his back. He said disdainfully, "Don't compare those rotten shrimps with Ben Shao. How can they be on the same level as Ben Shao? Ben Shao's martial arts can reach the heavens, his literary skills can destroy the earth. He can crush the stars with a flick of his finger and turn the desert into an oasis with a spit of his saliva. With such abilities, even you would be too scared to reveal your true self." Congratulations to the host for successfully boasting. You've received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Wang Kai. Whether it was his appearance, behavior, or even expression, they were all exactly the same as Wang Kai. The only difference was that there were 2 long sabers on his back. The hilts were clearly visible on the left and right sides of his neck, while the blades protruded from the sides of his waist. "Kid, you're saying that I don't dare to reveal my true self?" Seeing this, Wang Kai's face suddenly darkened. He frowned and stared at him, gritting his teeth and laughing. "Hee, it seems that you really admire Ben Shao. How about it? Don't you think that this young master's looks and poise are extraordinary? If you go out like this, you'll definitely be able to hook up with tens of thousands of beauties, right?" Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 1,000 experience points and 1 bragging point. Could this be considered bragging? Ben Shao was clearly very formidable, okay? The first floor of Tong Tian Tower is called Killing Self. If you can kill yourself, then go ahead. If you can't, then stay here forever. Solar Fist. Wang Kai chuckled disdainfully. He quickly put his hands together and formed a hollow shape. In the hollow shape, a dazzling light suddenly flashed, piercing the fake Wang Kai and forcing him to close his eyes. 10 dragon subduing slaps. But immediately, Wang Kai stepped in front of the fake Wang Kai. He raised his hand and gathered green battle chi, then slapped down on the fake Wang Kai's head. After 10 consecutive slaps, the fake Wang Kai's figure dissipated into nothingness. Whoosh! After the illusory figure disappeared, Wang Kai suddenly felt a strong suction force descend on his body. It was exactly the same as when he entered Tong Tian Tower. Before he could react, his body was pulled up in a straight line, turning into a stream of light and disappearing in the blink of an eye. What kind of freak is that kid? It's fine if he's not afraid of me, but even my illusory technique can't do anything to him. The only martial technique that I can detect is the cloud flipping palm. I can't determine the level of his martial arts and can only generalize that he's at the martial general realm. But why can't I detect the 2 martial techniques that he just displayed? Even if my illusory technique is used against a martial ancestor realm expert, I can still detect the opponent's martial arts realm, the martial techniques that he cultivates, and even all the means that he uses to fight the enemy. From there, I can create an illusory figure that's exactly the same as the real body. In this way, when the 2 fight, it's extremely difficult to determine the winner. But that kid just can't detect it. How strange. How strange. No, I have to figure it out. Maybe that kid can really help me. In the vast space, a voice full of surprise reverberated. Then, a stream of light shot straight up into the sky. Is it high this time? How interesting. I don't know who was the one who spoke on the first floor. He's such an idiot. He even said something about illusory techniques. It's fine if he can create my appearance, but why can't he create his ability as well? He was destroyed in just 1 move. How boring. Wang Kai stood on the sea and looked at the boundless sea. His expression was full of disdain. It seemed that this Tongtian tower was not difficult at all. Or rather, it was good at bragging. Welcome to my world. Stop, stop, stop. You don't have to talk nonsense and brag. You're not suitable for this job. Hurry up and get out. It's best if you don't end up like that idiot on the first floor, blowing out a bullshit illusion. Wang Kai's forehead was full of black lines, and he quickly waved his hand to interrupt. Kid, don't compare me to that useless cat on the first floor. His lousy illusory technique can only deceive children. Hearing this, Wang Kai nodded in agreement, putting on a look of appreciation and chuckling. You're right, but why did you create this sea? Let Benchao swim and catch 2 fish? Then you should create a beach. At least let Benchao bask in the sun and see the bikinis of a beauty. Trash. How dare you insult me? Whoosh. Suddenly, a white light appeared. As the white light dissipated, an extremely fat white cat appeared on the surface of the sea. It was more than a meter tall, and there were 2 golden earrings on its 2 erect cat ears. There were 2 long sabers on its back that were crossed. Its upright posture made it look like a big-bellied Maitreya Buddha. It looked extremely happy. Trash, why didn't you guard the first floor? What are you doing on the second floor? Do you want to be punished by the Cat King of the 9th floor? It seems that you haven't suffered enough over the years. Whoosh. At the same time, another cat that looked exactly the same appeared in front of the big white cat. However, its fur was blue, and it also carried 2 long swords on its back. The earrings on its ears were also golden. Are you guys trying to tell Benchao that you're all split from the same body? Wang Kai smacked his lips and looked at them in astonishment. Kid, shut up. You don't have the right to interrupt. The 2 big cats scolded at the same time. OF*CK. Are you guys trying to rebel? Wang Kai's face darkened. He stepped on the surface of the sea and walked straight to them. He grabbed each of them by the neck and lifted them up. You guys are quite heavy. You must have eaten a lot, right? You must be at least 70 to 80 kilograms, right? Do you think you're strong just because you're heavier? How dare you act tough in front of Benchao? Do you believe that Benchao will strip you of all your fur? Wang Kai threatened fiercely. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.